an uninvited ex shows up out of nowhere. This girl used to share an incredibly happy life with the man she loved. They even went as far as getting their marriage registered, but for some unspeakable reason, they decided to end their relationship. After going their separate ways, Min Hui discovered she was pregnant. Driven by her high pride, she chose to raise the child entirely on her own. Life seemed to pass by peacefully, but suddenly, 5 years later, the two of them cross paths again at a formal banquet. Once the person he loved the most, he now has to watch her sit on the lap of another man with his own eyes. 5 years ago, XinQi proposed to Min Hui on a beautiful beach. They used to share an incredibly beautiful romance, but just 3 months later, they tore apart. Today, the two meet again at a party with completely new roles and statuses. XinQi steps in and helps his former lover out of a messy situation. He then proceeds to mock Min Hui. He sneers that 5 years have passed, but it seems she has not changed a bit, still shamelessly clinging to a married man. He harshly questions if she feels the slightest bit of guilt for doing that. He asks if she is really so desperate that she has to resort to this. He even warns her not to say she's going to deceive someone else, exactly like she deceived him 5 years ago. Min Hui does not offer a single word of explanation. She only hopes he will forget the past. In truth, the breakdown of their previous marriage was partly her fault. Min Hui watches her former husband walk away with deep pain in her eyes. She wonders if after all this time, he still holds on to so much resentment toward her. On her end, she picks up the phone and calls the man she was just pretending to have an ambiguous relationship with. That man is XinQi. It turns out, Min Hui's son desperately needs surgery for his heart condition, and XinQi's father-in-law happens to be a leading expert in this specific field. To get him to agree to help, Min Hui had to swallow her pride and play along with XinQi. His true motive is based on their fierce rivalry. He wants to completely destroy her reputation at this gathering full of prominent business people. She knows full well that XinQi is using this to blackmail her, but for the sake of her son's life, Min Hui ignores absolutely everything else. XinQi thinks back to the old days and still feels incredibly furious. He orders his secretary to thoroughly investigate Min Hui's life over the past few years. After reading the investigation report, his heart rate instantly skyrockets. XinQi also suffered from congenital heart disease in the past. He had to undergo multiple major surgeries just to stay alive. Because of this, his adoptive parents force him to go to the hospital for routine checkups. Who would have thought he would bump into his old flame right there? When Min Hui sees XinQi, she immediately makes up an excuse and tries to dodge him. XinQi is busy tapping on his phone while walking. He almost gets hit by a nurse's cart. Seeing this, Min Hui quickly steps in and pushes him out of the way just in time. But he assumes she is just acting to take advantage of him. He tells her to stop pretending to care. Sarcastically praising her acting skills, XinQi threatens Min Hui to brace herself, warning that she will have to pay the price for what she is about to do. XinQi walks into the restroom and happens to meet a little boy. Their hand-washing habits are strangely identical. When the boy sees XinQi, he immediately compliments him on how handsome he is. XinQi takes the opportunity to linger and chat, praising the boy for being so remarkably sharp and asking whose kid he is. Neither of them has any idea that they are actually biological father and son. Min Hui had previously lied to her son, telling him his father had gone to a very faraway place. Quan has never met his father since the day he was born. He even believes his dad has already passed away. Quan is about to undergo a very serious heart surgery. Min Hui promises that if the operation goes smoothly, she will give him a special gift. This brings out Quan's ultimate wish for his mother. The little boy desperately wishes for a father. Hearing this, Min Hui quickly changes the subject. The truth always comes to light eventually. Not long after, Quan finally meets his biological father. It is true that family ties naturally draw them closer together. Quan takes the initiative to ask if he is married or has a girlfriend. XinQi does not hesitate to say he is still single. Hearing this makes Quan incredibly happy. The little boy immediately suggests that XinQi should become his dad. He shares that his mom once told him his dad was very handsome, so he thinks XinQi looks just like his dad. XinQi is about to take Quan to find his mom when Dr. Zhou Ruji suddenly appears. The doctor is understandably confused when the boy suddenly calls this stranger dad. XinQi is absolutely stunned when he discovers Min Hui is the child's biological mother. Watching their family of 3 enjoying their happiness makes XinQi's heart ache deeply. He wonders why things turned out like this, and why she gets to be happy while he does not. He feels incredibly bitter, seeing that she has already settled down and started a family, while he is still left all alone. XinQi is currently the new major shareholder of Jiaran Hospital. He turns to his secretary and asks if Bayan Company is negotiating a partnership with them. It is a clinical heart disease screening project called MIT, headed by Min Hui. On the other side, the employees in her company are buzzing about the messy drama from the past few days. Vice Director Chao Mu, who is also Min Hui's best friend, steps up to shut down their rumors. Min Hui is the main character in this drama, but she does not seem to care in the slightest. The only thing she cares about right now is wondering why she looks so fat and unattractive in those leaked photos. Chao Mu is highly curious about this guy named XinQi. She wonders why he stepped in to save her friend. Later, Min Hui shares a few details, but she deliberately leaves out the fact that XinQi is her former lover. Min Hui also hopes he will stop holding on to his grudge against her. Chao Mu is puzzled, not understanding what Min Hui could have possibly done to make him hate her so much. She guesses they used to be a couple, but had to break up for some unknown reason. In reality, Min Hui found out she was pregnant after they broke up, and she decided to keep the baby. Unexpectedly, when the boy was born, he inherited his father's congenital heart disease. To afford her son's medical bills, Min Hui had to struggle to find work everywhere. Fortunately, Chao Mu, who was the vice general manager of Bayan at the time, hired her. But Min Hui possesses outstanding abilities. She was promoted to director in just 2 years. Fate really loves to play jokes on people. Just one party was enough to bring her face to face with her old flame. The deeper their love used to be, the stronger the hatred is now. Carrying deep resentment, XinQi finds a way to take revenge. He deliberately makes things difficult at work, demanding the cancellation of the initial partnership project led by Min Hui. She has no idea the person manipulating things behind the scenes is her former lover, general manager. Haitang also mistakenly assumes it is Min Hui's fault, believing the incident at the party caused a massive negative impact. Min Hui is extremely frustrated. She openly admits her behavior that day was indeed inappropriate, but she argues back, asking, since when her personal reputation could affect the entire Bayan company. She questions if she is the official spokesperson for Bayan, emphasizing that if the company did have one, that position would definitely belong to her. Soon after, Chao Mu looks into the situation and discovers the reason the partnership project was suspended. The new major shareholder of Jiaran Hospital, coming from Bluebird Group, requested the halt. Min Hui personally goes to Bluebird Group to persuade them, and is shocked to discover the person calling the shots is her former lover. This time, she is completely thrown off balance, but being a highly professional worker, she quickly adjusts her emotions and starts showing her true capabilities. After being rejected countless times, even with continuous failures, she refuses to give up easily. Min Hui exhaustedly asks him if they really have to keep clashing like this. XinQi coldly replies that he can never forget the pain she caused him back then, and he cannot even bring himself to forgive her. She reports that this is all the information regarding the MIT project that Jiaran Hospital just revised and sent over, adding that they still highly value this project. XinQi shoots back that whether or not they invest in it is not just about the project's quality, they also have to consider the character of the person running it. It is obvious that in his eyes, Min Hui is still a terrible person, but not long after, he ends up having to accept help from his former lover. Secretary Hardy reports that XinQi's adoptive mother, who is currently abroad, has set up a blind date for him. He absolutely has to go. XinQi reluctantly agrees. After meeting her, he realizes the other party is extremely difficult to deal with. She just keeps talking non-stop. Min Hui, who is secretly following XinQi, seizes the opportunity and steps out to save him. And the price for this is that XinQi has to give her 10 minutes to pitch the MT project. Min Hui notes that the girl seems quite into him, and points out that if he relied solely on himself, he would never be able to escape. The blind date angrily asks who this newcomer is. Min Hui fires back that she should ask XinQi. The girl complains that they are disrespecting her and treating her like she is invisible. XinQi immediately speaks up, confirming that Min Hui is indeed his girlfriend. The painful past is slowly revealed. To save Min Hui, a girl she had just met, Su Tian sacrificed her own life. With her dying breath, Su Tian handed her diary to Min Hui, asking her to go meet an old friend. When XinQi was a child, he lived in the same orphanage as Su Tian for 15 years. Later, XinQi was adopted and taken abroad. When they parted ways, XinQi and Su Tian promised to meet again in 15 years. XinQi also swore he would definitely marry her. Su Tian always believed in that promise. Exactly 15 years later, Su Tian took a bus to the promised location, but tragically lost her life to save a stranger. To fulfill her savior's final wish, Min Hui brought Su Tian's hairpin to the meeting place. After seeing the keepsake, XinQi mistakenly assumed she was Su Tian. He immediately kept his old promise and got down on one knee to propose. The result was that the moment Min Hui confessed she was not Su Tian, XinQi went into shock and his heart condition relapsed. In that critical situation, she was forced to lie, claiming she she had changed her name to Min Hui. Her original intention was to temporarily pretend to be Su Tian and accompany XinQi abroad for his surgery. She planned to wait until he fully recovered before telling him the truth. Unexpectedly, while taking care of XinQi, Min Hui slowly developed feelings and fell in love with him. Even though they shared an incredibly sweet time together, when Min Hui finally decided to reveal the whole truth, XinQi still could not accept it. He felt like he had been brutally deceived. In a fit of rage, he dropped a bitter line, saying he never wanted to see her again. Who would have expected fate to play such a cruel joke? On the very day he returns to China after 5 years, before even having a welcome party, XinQi bumps into Min Hui. He is so furious that he swears to get revenge on her. Back in the present, the blind date turns out to be too hard to escape, so he has to use her as a shield. His date questions why he is on a blind date if he already has a girlfriend. XinQi casually replies that he actually wanted to see what she was like. He adds that if this girl was better than his current lover, he would break up with his girlfriend, but he points out the reality that his girlfriend is super clingy. XinQi promises to give Min Hui 10 minutes to pitch the MIT project, but demands she come to his company to talk. On Thursday morning, Min Hui arrives right on time as promised, but XinQi deliberately makes things difficult and stalls for time. Right now, her son's surgery is about to begin. Min Hui promised to be by her son's side before the operation. After weighing what is most important, she gives up on waiting. She apologizes for being late. Kukuan replies that she does not need to apologize because he knew his mom would definitely come. The little boy admits he is still a little bit scared. Min Hui immediately comforts him, saying she will transfer her energy to him. The boy happily announces he is no longer scared. Watching her son being wheeled into the operating room, Min Hui is incredibly anxious, terrified that something unexpected might happen. Meanwhile, XinQi, realizing Min Hui left on her own accord, suddenly flies into a rage. He immediately orders Hardy to contact Min Hui's competitor. He hands over the opportunity to co-develop the smart heart surgery support system to Cheng Qirong. Cheng Qirong is visibly thrilled. He does not miss the chance to belittle Min Hui, commenting that her work style does not seem very good, considering she became a director in less than 2 years. Everyone understands this kind of toxic workplace. Malice, deliberately throwing blame at highly capable women. Even though he despises his former lover's deception, XinQi does not like hearing these kinds of judgmental comments. XinQi bluntly states he does not care what kind of person Min Hui is, but he criticizes Cheng Qirong, saying that for a man to talk behind a woman's back like that is incredibly ungentlemanly. Min Hui waits agonizingly. Finally, her son's surgery is a complete success. Upon hearing that her child has passed the most critical stage, she finally breathes a sigh of relief. Min Hui cannot hold back her tears of joy, but very soon, she will have to face the work troubles caused by her ex. XinQi constantly urges her to go faster because he is going to be late. He repeatedly demands she speed up even more. Min Hui angrily fires back, telling him to shut up because she is the one driving. The two of them used to be a couple, but for some reason, they tore apart. Meeting again after 5 years apart, XinQi, driven by his deep resentment, has caused endless trouble for Min Hui. Seeing her company's project put on hold because of her, Min Hui has no choice but to run to XinQi to beg for a favor. She begs him not to act like this out of a personal grudge, hoping he can view this partnership from a professional standpoint. However, XinQi acts somewhat childishly, adamantly refusing to meet her, no matter what she says. Feeling helpless, Min Hui uses her programming skills to hack into XinQi's computer, forcing him to come out and face her. Min Hui complains that he was a whole half an hour late yesterday, which is why she made him wait. XinQi argues back that waiting half an hour is nothing. He brings up the fact that 5 years ago, she deceived him for 3 whole months, so right now he has only taken back half an hour. Even though she cannot erase XinQi's resentment, Min Hui refuses to give up, following him. Luckily, right at that moment, an employee comes over to announce that it is time for his next schedule, so XinQi takes that opportunity to leave. Min Hui hurries after him, planning to pitch the project to XinQi while he is on the road, but in the end, she is still one step too slow, forced to watch him drive away. However, heaven really does not disappoint those who try hard. Right now, there is a massive traffic jam on the road, making XinQi incredibly anxious. Suddenly, he sees Min Hui riding a scooter toward him from a distance. Hearing her offer to give him a ride, he smirks mockingly. He firmly declares that in his entire life, he will never sit on such a dangerous mode of transportation. He did not expect the very next second to be such an incredibly embarrassing sight. XinQi sits on the back looking terrified, constantly urging her to go faster, but the more he rushes her, the more she slams slams on the brakes. Terrified, he has no choice but to hold tightly onto Min Hui. A little while later, he safely arrives at the meeting location. Finally, he agrees to give Min Hui 10 minutes to introduce the MIT project. Faced with Min Hui's well-founded pitch, along with her daring and determined spirit, XinQi's resolve wavers a bit, but she is only given one single chance to participate in the bidding. All her hard work finally pays off, and Min Hui is overjoyed. But after finding out the competitor in this bid is Cheng Qirong's Guanchao group, Min Hui starts feeling anxious again. She is always confident about the quality of her product, but Cheng Qirong is a man who does things immorally, so she feels she should still be on high alert. XinQi goes to Jiaran Hospital to discuss the bidding with the director. On his way out, he accidentally spots a family of 3 looking happy together. The fire of jealousy inside him that had just died down suddenly flares up again, so he uses needing a health checkup as an excuse to specifically request Dr. Zhou Ruji to examine him, taking the opportunity to mock the doctor for not being professional enough. Hearing this makes Qi very unhappy. The little boy speaks up, telling him not to bully Dad Zhou, and declares he does not like him anymore. The boy emphasizes that no matter how handsome he is, he will absolutely never let him be his dad. Seeing his former lover with her family of 3, XinQi becomes jealous and entirely loses his cool. At the bidding meeting, he deliberately targets Min Hui's company's product for attack, but Min Hui is not someone who is easily bullied. She destroys all his arguments with sharp logic, leaving him completely speechless. Calmu notes that the moment Min Hui presented one sentence, XinQi fired back with 3 questions. She points out that he only asks unreasonable things, making it obvious he is deliberately trying to find fault. After the bidding ends, XinQi stops to buy something at a convenience store near the hospital. Coincidentally, Min Hui and her son are also there. When Min Hui steps outside to take a phone call, Kuquan immediately recognizes XinQi, so the little boy charges right at him. XinQi is surprised and asks why the boy is hitting him. Kuquan answers that it is because he bullied Dad Zhou, making him a bad guy. Seeing Kuquan continue his attack, XinQi decides to play along and joke around with the boy. After a brief wrestling match, Kuquan accidentally exposes his post-surgery heart support device. The boy proudly declares that he is Superman, so he can never lose. It is only then that XinQi realizes with a shock that Kuquan has undergone heart surgery. After asking a few more questions, he also discovers that Dr. Zhou Ruji is absolutely not the boy's biological father. Putting these 2 facts together, a wildly bold thought suddenly pops into his head, so he hurriedly presses Kuquan for his birthday. Unexpectedly, this action is cut off when Min Hui walks in. Knowing her ex still harbors resentment toward her, she is terrified he might try to fight for custody of their child. Therefore, she tries her hardest to hide her son's real birthday. Unable to win an argument with XinQi, Min Hui is forced to deliberately remind her son, right in front of him, that his birthday is still half a year away, cleverly asking if he has forgotten. Even though XinQi does not really believe her, there is nothing he can do right now. At the same time, he also learns the whereabouts of Min Hui's husband. Kuquan shares that his mom said his dad went to a very faraway place, but the little boy knows perfectly well that it means his dad has passed away. The boy complains that adults should put a little more effort into comforting kids. He criticizes them for lying without even coming up with a more convincing excuse. The next day, Min Hui receives news that her company's bid has failed, and she feels completely baffled. At the same time, the blame from her superiors and the suspicion from her co-workers make her incredibly frustrated, so she immediately runs off to find XinQi, demanding to know why he is always targeting her like this. Guanchao Group's product is completely inferior to the MIT project in both precision and clinical safety, but the initial bidding result was decided by the senior management of Jiaran Hospital due to secret collusion, and had absolutely nothing to do with XinQi. Even though he used harsh words with Min Hui, he immediately and secretly invites Cheng Qirong to dinner right after. The purpose of this is to fish for clues to see if there was any fraud in the bidding process. Min Hui shares the exact same suspicions. While secretly tailing the director, Min Hui bumps into XinQi. XinQi asks what she is doing here. Min Hui surprisedly asks back what his purpose for being here is. XinQi coldly replies that what he does has absolutely nothing to do with her. Another time, Min Hui's process of trailing the director is almost caught red-handed. Luckily, XinQi thinks fast and steps in to save her. XinQi probes to see if she is also trailing Puhua. Even though XinQi stubbornly refuses to admit it, through their 2 encounters, Min Hui realizes the other party shares the exact same goal as her. Therefore, she takes the initiative to suggest they work together to find evidence. Just as the 2 are about to leave, a store employee brings out a shirt stained with lipstick and demands demands payment. XinQi deliberately forces Min Hui to pay. Min Hui cannot win the argument with him, so in a fit of anger, she throws down money and buys the exact same type of shirt, the exact same size, one in every single color. She claims the reason for buying them is to gift them to the younger brother standing next to her. When Assistant Hardy sees the pile of shirts and the lipstick stain, he secretly rejoices. He assumes his boss, who has been single for years, is finally seeing women. He mutters sarcastically that letting women participate in research is truly like a joke. Because the company's product bid was unsuccessful, Min Hui, as the project lead, is mocked by her co-workers. Facing discrimination and hostile glares, Min Hui immediately stands up and fiercely fights back, leaving the other parties speechless. But a victory using empty words is never a true victory. Min Hui knows perfectly well that the ultimate key lies in the results. She also blatantly throws a cup of coffee right at the guy when he tries to insult her. To get concrete evidence of the secret collusion between the client hospital and the competitor, Min Hui plans to team up with XinQi. The two of them arrange separate private meetings with the Jiaran Hospital director's wife and Lin Shiyue, the product manager of Guanchao Group. By taking advantage of the information gap between the two sides, they successfully make Lin Shiyue suspicious and cause a misunderstanding. Then, Min Hui makes an excuse to go to the restroom. On the flip side, XinQi also makes an excuse, saying he left his phone in the car. Then the two of them leave the table one after another. But in reality, there is a phone hidden under the table, with the call function still running. Lin Shiyue is completely in the dark about the true relationship between Min Hui and XinQi, so she does not suspect a thing. Taking advantage of the fact that no one is around, she calls to confront Pua's wife, and on the other side, Min Hui and XinQi are standing together, secretly eavesdropping on their entire heated conversation. Lin Shiyue insists that no matter what Min Hui says, it is a trap, especially regarding the under-the-table deals between her and the director. After scheming for a long while, the two of them finally gather solid evidence. XinQi immediately reports the matter to the company's internal audit department, demanding they look for the money transfer records between Lin Shiyue and the director. Thanks to this, the contract with Jiaran Hospital finally falls back into Min Hui's hands. Cao Mu throws a massive celebration party, inviting all the co-workers in the department to celebrate. At the same time, the major shareholders from the client's side are also invited to attend. Min Hui complains to Cao Mu about why she invited him here. Hearing this, XinQi asks if Director Min is not very welcoming of his presence because her ex is also here. Min Hui feels incredibly uncomfortable throughout the entire meal, but when a co-worker steps up to raise a glass and toast XinQi, she starts getting anxious because after all, he has had heart surgery, so drinking a lot of alcohol is completely bad for his health. So, whenever someone comes up to toast XinQi, Min Hui steps in to block it, but she did not expect that such caring actions would be viewed by the other party as just pretending to be nice. Thanks to a little liquid courage, Min Hui finally dares to speak the grievances she has hidden deep inside for so long. She resents the fact that he constantly accuses her of deceiving him, explaining that she did all of that just to protect his life. She firmly declares she owes him absolutely nothing. She recounts that back then, when he was lying on his deathbed, when even the attending doctor did not know how long he could hold on, it was she who stayed by his side the whole time. She reminds him of how she told stories and read every single page of Su Tian's diary to him every day. She did everything with the fragile hope that he could push through and stay alive. The little boy shares that his dad and mom told him he has to wear this device, and they also keep lying to him, saying he is Iron Man. Because Quan suffers from congenital heart disease, he is always teased by his classmates, leading the boy to suffer from psychological trauma. XinQi experienced a very similar painful childhood, so he really wants to help the boy overcome it. He personally uses a pen to draw a glowing Iron Man heart on the device. This action not only unties the knot in Quan's heart, but also makes the other kids feel curious and excited, stopping them from isolating him. Watching the video sent by the teacher, a happy smile finally blooms on Min Hui's lips. She takes the opportunity while reporting the project data to directly express her deep gratitude to XinQi. XinQi also decides to use this opportunity to completely settle all the grudges with Min Hui. He expresses his view on what happened 5 years ago, saying whether it was a calculated scheme or just an unavoidable coincidence does not matter. He acknowledges that at least in his darkest moments, when he felt he could not hold on anymore, she stayed by his side to help him cross the boundary between life and death. XinQi declares he accepts her apology and agrees to let go of everything in the past. He decides that starting from today, the grudges and hatred between the two of them are completely gone. gone. Perhaps this is a perfect reunion, letting go of a lingering grudge with just a single smile, like marking a brand new beginning. XinQi thoughtfully prepares an Iron Man helmet for Quan. He personally brings it to the kindergarten to play with the little boy. The result is that right at this moment, Min Hui receives an emergency notice from the hospital. She rushes over in a panic, extreme worry clearly written all over her face. But when she learns that Quan urgently needs a blood transfusion, XinQi immediately volunteers to help. He says he has type O blood, so he can absolutely donate. This time, Min Hui becomes even more flustered and panicked, because according to medical principles, direct blood relatives absolutely cannot donate blood to each other. Faced with XinQi's constant pressing and pleading, Min Hui finally has no choice but to bitterly confess the truth. XinQi is absolutely stunned. So all the suspicions in his heart have now been officially confirmed. But in reality, Quan's condition isn't serious at all. He just accidentally fell and got some surface scratches. Coming to the hospital for simple disinfection and treatment is enough. XinQi sharply spots that the billing receipt clearly states Quan has already turned 4 years old. After piecing it together and combining it with all the previous information, he has the exact answer for himself. That is why he deliberately came up with the idea of demanding to donate blood, aiming to force Min Hui to confess the truth out of her own mouth. She questions if he is planning to snatch the boy and hide him away. XinQi immediately denies it, saying of course not. Now XinQi is visibly thrilled. Knowing he suddenly has an incredibly well-behaved son, he starts talking more comfortably. XinQi explains to Hardy that the bond of bloodlines is something truly, incredibly special. He assumes the secretary cannot understand this feeling without having a son. XinQi even proudly asks if Quan looks exactly like him. To have the chance to interact more with his son, XinQi immediately contacts his personal lawyer and makes some legal decisions. Min Hui cannot even believe her eyes. She tells herself she must be hallucinating because she has been working too hard lately and tries to take another look. XinQi teasingly asks if she has seen enough and demands she hurry up and take the trash out if she is done looking. After 5 long years apart, XinQi suddenly discovers he has a biological son, so he, incredibly brazenly, moves his luggage straight into Min Hui's house to live together. The father and son even deliberately wear matching outfits. XinQi is visibly smug. Seeing the two angry pandas printed on their shirts just makes Min Hui even more annoyed. She pulls XinQi aside, but he stubbornly insists on arguing to the bitter end. He reasons that since a child cannot grow up without a father's love, as a mother, she needs to think very carefully. He demands she explain why Quan keeps going around claiming other people are his dad. Hearing this, Min Hui unconsciously falls deep into thought. After thinking for a while, she suggests leaving the final decision entirely up to their son. The result is that Quan decisively takes his father's side and opposes his mother. And just like that, a couple who had previously broken up is now forced to live together under the exact same roof. But the cramped living conditions at Min Hui's apartment make XinQi feel very uncomfortable. At the same time, Min Hui feels twice as frustrated because of XinQi's sudden presence in her house. Min Hui is startled and scolds XinQi, asking if he has a mental problem for suddenly standing there like a creep. XinQi calmly fires back, telling her to act like she has never seen this before. Furthermore, even regarding her son's nutrition, diet, or the mode of transportation used to take him to school, XinQi has a lot of complaints. The two of them constantly disagree and cannot stop arguing. So in the end, Min Hui has to give in and choose to back down. But she completely fails to anticipate that this concession is traded for the other party's aggressive, pushy moves. XinQi catches a cold just because he accidentally runs out of hot water halfway through his shower, so he decides to call someone in to completely replace all the fixtures in the bathroom. Right after, an expensive coffee machine is also brought in. Quan's entire nursery is also given a brand new look. Because he just acts on his own, Min Hui is extremely unhappy and is about to fly into a rage, but she cannot act so loudly in front of her child, so she has to restrain herself and pretend to get along. The little boy demands his parents be good and absolutely stop fighting. Min Hui awkwardly replies that she already knows the petty conflicts at home are temporarily shut down, but the troubles at work keep happening. While attending a meeting at Bluebird Group, when she reports on the software testing progress, Min Hui panics when she realizes she accidentally grabbed XinQi's MacBook. The two of them lock eyes, both looking equally flustered, making the surrounding coworkers feel completely baffled. Luckily, Min Hui has memorized and remembers almost the entire content, so she confidently stands there and gives her presentation without needing to show the slides. This helps dispel the suspicions of everyone in the meeting room, while also helping the two of them continue to hide the truth that they are currently living together. After the meeting ends, Min Hui quietly seeks out XinQi to secretly swap the computers back. XinQi complains that Min Hui walks without making a sound. He urges her to swap the computers quickly because there is no one around right now. Scene change. Director Ding Yifeng deliberately makes an excuse about dropping something to demand his new assistant pick it up for him. The naive employee suspects nothing and immediately bends down to look for the item. Unexpectedly, Ding Yifeng despicably uses this opportunity, both deliberately stalling for time and using his perverted eyes to peek at his assistant's body. He even makes all sorts of indecent descriptive gestures with his hands. Min Hui walks by and sees that repulsive sight, so she immediately steps in to block his view and delivers a stern warning. But who would have expected that Ding Yifeng's nature would never change? During a dinner party with coworkers, he keeps constantly pressuring and forcing the new assistant to drink and toast to him. The girl cannot possibly refuse, so she has to close her eyes and drink. After that, he even deliberately spills wine all over the girl. Then he sleazily pretends to use wiping her shirt as an excuse to deliberately grope and harass the female assistant's body. Sitting from afar, Min Hui spots that depraved behavior, so she immediately rushes over to stop it. Min Hui sarcastically remarks that Director Ding seems to have had a bit too much to drink. She warns him that while she is still giving him some face, he better get out of her sight. Ding Yifeng, furious, violently swats Min Hui's hand away. He loudly insults her, saying she is just someone who is good at pretending to be virtuous in front of everyone, but in reality, she is a promiscuous woman who plays around, resulting in giving birth to a 4-year-old fatherless child. What a coincidence. XinQi just steps out of the VIP room and hears the whole thing. Earlier, Cheng Qirong invited him in to discuss a partnership, while also trying to find a way to apologize and cover up for bribing the director last time, plotting to dump all the blame and responsibility onto Lin Xue. The two men just step out of the room after finishing their talk and witness the entire heated conflict between the other two. When XinQi hears those insults, he becomes absolutely furious. Without saying a single word, he charges straight ahead and delivers a massive punch right into Ding Yifeng's face. This sudden violent action makes everyone present incredibly panicked and confused. And when Ding Yifeng looks up and discovers the person who just beat him up is XinQi, he cowers in fear, not daring to utter another word. Because after all, the other party's identity is the powerful CEO of their biggest partner company. He feels resentful, but can only bow his head and admit defeat. Seeing XinQi walk away, Min Hui hurries after him outside to say thank you, but before she can even speak, he angrily turns around and scolds her. XinQi angrily criticizes her, asking if this is the way she proudly claims to be taking such great care of Kukuan. He is furious that she lets her son get cursed at by others as a fatherless child. Hearing this makes Min Hui feel incredibly guilty. She immediately bows her head and apologizes with a very sincere attitude. Seeing this, XinQi is broken. Slightly surprised, his anger fades and he softly comforts her, saying what just happened actually was not her fault. But right as the atmosphere is settling down, Min Hui suddenly hears Cao Mu loudly calling her name from afar. It is an emergency, so she frantically grabs XinQi's hand and runs off to find a place to hide, because she absolutely does not want anyone else to know about her complicated relationship with CEO XinQi. Cao Mu stands there looking around like someone who has lost her way, completely unaware that these two main characters are currently hiding in a corner not far away at all. They have to patiently wait until Cao Mu gives up and walks away before the two of them finally dare to breathe a sigh of relief. Min Hui explains that grabbing his hand just now was entirely forced by the situation, and she really did not do it on purpose. The next day, Ding Yifeng walks into the company for work with his face covered in bandages. Carrying anger in his heart, he takes it out on others, deliberately picking a fight and loudly scolding the assistant. Min Hui witnesses this scene and becomes incredibly furious. She quietly returns to her desk and uses her professional IT skills to create a fake link containing attractive photos. Then she anonymously sends that message to him. True to his nature, Ding Yifeng receives the message and eagerly clicks on it to see, and instantly his computer takes the bait and is infected with malware. Serves the perverted boss right with his wandering hands. You shameless creep. Thanks to a little romantic project progress through all the things that happened with Min Hui last night. XinQi goes to work today, feeling in an incredibly great mood. While eating the sweet cake personally bought and gifted by his former lover, he unconsciously breaks into a silly smile. It is obvious that right now, his mind is painting a lot of wild thoughts and fantasies about the future, but verbally, he always uses his son as an excuse to stubbornly insist on staying at Min Hui's house. Furthermore, due to the massive differences in their daily habits and entirely opposite views on parenting methods, the two of them frequently get into endless arguments. Both of them are stubborn, absolutely refusing to give in to each other. Seeing their parents constantly bickering loudly like this all day, Kuquan stands in the middle, helplessly shaking his head and telling them to stop. Seeing XinQi constantly lounging around the house all day, playing with their son, Min Hui feels incredibly annoyed and completely dissatisfied. Deep down, all she can think about right now is figuring out how to quickly get rid of him. Min Hui asks her best friend if she were forced to constantly endure frustration and face the person she absolutely despises every single day, would she want to keep living like that? Cao Mu replies that no normal person in the world would accept that. Min Hui knows her own limits, so she resolves to kick XinQi back to his own house. Waiting until late at night, after coaxing Kuquan into a deep sleep, Min Hui strides out to the living room to have a serious talk with XinQi. She bluntly asks him what exactly he wants and what conditions need to be met for him to pack up and move out. XinQi replies indifferently, saying he only has one single condition for the exchange: if Min Hui agrees to sign a waiver transferring custody of Kuquan to live at his house, he promises to immediately pack his bags and leave. Naturally, as a mother, Min Hui instantly and loudly rejects that outrageous demand. Min Hui demands to know why he insists on staying at her house. XinQi explains he is staying here entirely for Kuquan. He denies staying because of her and insists there is no such ridiculous reason. Both of them talk tough, using harsh words to deliberately cover up the feelings boiling inside them, while also trying their hardest to draw a clear boundary line with the other person. XinQi adds that she should not worry. He will not be freeloading in this house forever. He is only doing this because he wants to make up for lost time and spend more time with his son. After all, in a dump like this, a person like him could not possibly survive for long. Hearing this, Min Hui vaguely understands his hidden meaning. Early the very next morning, she decisively chooses to catch a taxi herself to take Quan to school, and she bluntly declares to him that from today onward, she and her son will never hitch a ride in XinQi's car ever again. But from one man to another, XinQi perfectly understands his young son's calculating thoughts. XinQi brings up Xiaomi's compliment about his cool car. He suggests that today after school, the two of them should take the little girl for a spin, and just like that, XinQi smugly opens the car door and drives off with his son, leaving Min Hui standing alone with a feeling of extreme bewilderment. However, time passes in the blink of an eye, and it is already time to leave work in the afternoon. XinQi specifically ordered his driver to take a detour, deliberately going right to the front door of Min Hui's company to wait for her. At first, Min Hui was sulking and had absolutely no desire to get in the car, but the luxury car is parked right there, and if the two of them keep stubbornly standing there like that, it would look incredibly awkward if anyone saw them. Director Ding Yifeng, standing not far away, looks very surprised when he sees with his own eyes Min Hui stepping into a luxury car. The driver makes a sharp turn at the corner. Before Min Hui can sit securely, she tumbles right into XinQi's lap. The result is that Ding Yifeng quickly raises his phone and snaps photos continuously. He cannot clearly see the identity of the man sitting in the car, so he will definitely start fabricating rumors again. The next morning, the moment Min Hui arrives at the company, she hears her co-workers buzzing with gossip. It turns out she has reluctantly become the female lead of a romantic scandal. Seeing the rumors online, Min Hui immediately uses her professional skills to track down the IP of the person spreading them. She quickly narrows it down to a nearby residential area. Ding Yifeng, the #1 R&D director, just so happens to live in that exact area. Combined with their previous conflicts, Min Hui can be absolutely certain that Ding Yifeng is the one who did it. At the same time, XinQi also happens to overhear a group of employees talking about this rumor. He has no idea the man in the rumor is actually him, so he suddenly feels jealous and furious. XinQi storms into Min Hui's office in a fit of rage and kicks the two unrelated people out. Then he starts criticizing her. XinQi declares he has no right to interfere in her private life, but he demands that at least if she still remembers she is a mother, she should think about Kuquan. He warns her it is best not to do anything too outrageous. XinQi insists he does not want to know and does not care which man she is tangling with. Hearing this, Min Hui is absolutely immediately furious. She takes out her phone and shows XinQi the rumor photos. After looking at them, he is stunned to realize the male lead is none other than himself. Min Hui refuses to be wronged, so she goes to the general manager's office to demand justice. She also teams up with Cao Mu to confiscate Ding Yifeng's phone, forcing him to admit that he lied. At the same time, Min Hui demands he clear up the rumors and publicly apologize. If not, she will resign and leave the company. Hearing this, Cao Mu instantly panics and chases after Min Hui to ask for clarity. Min Hui says she is not going anywhere. If someone has to leave, it is Ding Yifeng. Cao Mu finally understands. Min Hui confidently believes that she has now become the core competitive asset of Bayan. The company's most important MIT project is her research and development work. She is also the one negotiating with partners. That is why Min Hui is so confident. But what she does not know is that Ding Yifeng is secretly scheming with the general manager, using this opportunity to kick Min Hui out. He argues that MIT has already been fully developed, and all that is needed in the future is operation and maintenance. Ding Yifeng is fully capable of doing this. He volunteers to meet with XinQi to discuss changing the person in charge. The result is that XinQi drags him down to the parking garage. XinQi points to his newly bought car, telling him to look at how beautiful it is, and demands he look closer. As Ding Yifeng steps closer to look, he feels as if he has seen this car somewhere before. The more he looks, the more terrified he becomes. An image flashes in his mind of him turning himself into an absolute fool. Faced with the intimidation of CEO XinQi, he timidly agrees to the demand to apologize and correct the rumors. Later, Min Hui sees the apology post online. She goes home and happily tells XinQi that she is very grateful for Cao Mu's support, and also thanks her co-workers for uniting and trusting her. But XinQi is the only one left out and unmentioned. It makes him very unhappy, because it is obvious that this issue was resolved perfectly, all thanks to his efforts. That entire night, Kukuan forces his parents to tell him stories. The two take turns telling one sentence each, eventually making them sleepy. Early the next morning, the sleeping positions on the bed have completely changed. While watching a movie, Kukuan sees two people looking exactly like his parents being very affectionate. XinQi points at the screen, wondering out loud that the actor looks like him. Kukuan argues back that there is not a single resemblance. Losing interest, Kukuan tells his parents to tell him a story, because their relationship status is currently unclear. Min Hui feels awkward and refuses to share a bed with XinQi, but a child's whining is no joke. No matter how much she refuses, she eventually has to give in. So the two split the storytelling, one sentence each. It takes forever to coax him to sleep, only for them to find their arms tightly hugged by the boy. With no other choice, they have to stay in that exact position until morning. Unexpectedly, the next morning the scene on the bed turns out like this. Min Hui wakes up first and notices something strange. To her surprise, XinQi is also awake. Min Hui resorts to a trick. As long as she is not embarrassed, the embarrassed one will definitely be the other person. So she quickly shuts her eyes and pretends to sleep. But she ends up being exposed by her own son. The little boy keeps urging his mom to wake up quickly. Min Hui whispers, asking her son not to wake his dad. The boy turns and points out to his dad that mom is already awake, proving it by saying her eyes and mouth are moving. Min Hui helplessly praises him for being such a smart little old man. Thanks to her son's quick wit, Min Hui can only pretend to open her eyes and wake up. The two instantly understand each other, deliberately avoiding talking about this awkward situation. But right at this moment, the doorbell suddenly rings. XinQi naturally strides over to open the door. And just like that, the fact that they are living together is discovered by Zhou Ruji. Min Hui is incredibly anxious. She quickly pulls Zhou Ruji away to explain. Meanwhile, XinQi is left behind at home, left to guess what they are talking about. So he shifts his focus to probing his son about his rival. Unexpectedly, Kukuan refuses to give him any face and stubbornly stays silent. Min Hui tells Zhou Ruji about her past with XinQi. She explains that right now, their relationship is simply being Kukuan's parents. Just like any other separated parents, she is just waiting a while for her son to get used to XinQi, and then she will have him move out. Zhou Ruji promises to keep this a secret. When Min Hui returns, she feels very dissatisfied. A jealous atmosphere is filling the room. XinQi is visibly jealous. He irritably asks what they talked about that took as long as 27 minutes and 36 seconds. Min Hui sarcastically praises him for being so good at calculating time down to the exact second. In the evening, Zhou Ruji specifically comes over to Min Hui's house under the guise of making sweet and sour ribs for Kukuan. Because Kukuan has not had this dish in days, it seems he is very familiar with where all the kitchen utensils are kept here. XinQi knows his rival used to come here often, so when Min Hui steps out to take a phone call, he starts bickering with Zhou Ruji. Zhou Ruji invites boss Xin to taste the pickled fish he made, confidently claiming it suits his taste perfectly because it is both sour and unnecessary. XinQi fires back, offering him some sweet potato to nourish himself, mocking the dish for being soft, sticky, and clinging like a leech. Min Hui prepares a lavish Western meal for XinQi. Naturally, XinQi understands that she must have a favor to ask to put on such a show, so he gets straight to the point, asking bluntly what she put in which dish. Min Hui wipes a cold sweat from her neck, slightly hesitant to reveal her true motive. It turns out that during the day, General Manager He Haitan told her to pause the development of the AI heart modeling software. The reason is that this project requires a massive investment, and the company's short-term profits will not recover if the cycle drags on. Min Hui is extremely dissatisfied. Initially, he promised that once the MIT project entered the clinical stage, he would let her continue developing the software. Now he is going back on his word, proving to be untrustworthy. But he gives Min Hui two choices. One is to take over the development of a non-invasive liposuction machine project to help the company make money first. Two is to go out and secure funding herself to continue the MIT project. In short, it boils down to one sentence. The company has no money right now. After Vice Director Cao Mu tried to persuade him to no avail, she encouraged Min Hui to convince XinQi to invest. XinQi asks if she is trying to compliment him for having a good eye for promising projects. Min Hui immediately agrees, saying of course that is the case. She says all the right things to praise XinQi, even though he previously worked with Chen Qiran's Guanchao group and was close to signing a contract. Once signed, his cash flow would be stretched thin, but deep down, XinQi is still willing to give Min Hui a chance. After all, the road to winning back love is long. If he does not put in the effort, how can he succeed? From Bluebird Group's perspective, supporting cancer screening programs would yield higher profits, and their development cycle is only a year and a half. Min Hui's MIT project takes up to 2.5 years. XinQi also needs to explain things to his shareholders. Therefore, Min Hui must write a feasible business plan that proves the project can be completed in 2 years and submit it within 2 weeks. If not, he can only choose to invest according to his company's direction. Min Hui starts working overtime day and night. Knowing she is working late, Zhou Ruji comes over to take care of Kuquan. After all, when facing a strong rival, one must win the child's affection first. That way, pursuing the mother will also be faster than usual. More importantly, it can make the rival angry. XinQi asserts that he moved here for Kuquan and declares the doctor has no right to ask if he has feelings for Min Hui. He emphasizes that she is the mother of his child. Zhou Ruji sharply fires back that she is just the mother of his child, nothing more. XinQi stays up late feeling exhausted, but he still deeply cares for Min Hui. Worried she will not be able to finish the plan in 2 weeks, he helps her find a lot of relevant information. But Min Hui has to say something sweet to his ears before she can take it. Min Hui reluctantly compliments him for being really handsome. XinQi complains her words lack sincerity and tells her to stop joking around because Kuquan is already asleep. To finish the project reform plan within 2 weeks, Min Hui and her co-workers have to work overtime day and night, coming home extremely late. Using his son as an excuse, XinQi stubbornly insists on staying at Min Hui's house. Seeing her work so hard makes him feel sympathetic, so he helps her research relevant information for reference. He also explains the deeper aspects of it to her. People often say a man is most attractive when he is focused. Min Hui can feel that right now, but thinking about how they no longer have any ties, she reminds herself to stay clear-headed. Days go by. Right before the deadline, Min Hui finally completes the plan. Vice Director Cao Mu is thrilled, so she invites Min Hui out for drinks to celebrate. Afterwards, Min Hui gets completely wasted. Even after getting home, she still feels sick to her stomach. XinQi takes incredibly good care of her. In her drunken days, Min Hui remembers the past, and then, XinQi is left completely stunned, having no idea what is going on. Avoiding it is the best solution. The next day when she wakes up, Min Hui remembers last night and reassures herself it was just a dream. But XinQi has prepared a glass of honey water to soothe her stomach. He probes to see if she acts like this every time she gets drunk. Min Hui almost chokes on her water in panic. She nervously asks if she did anything else out of line. This question makes XinQi spit his water right onto the laptop. Min Hui curiously asks if his computer was quite expensive. XinQi coldly informs her that it is actually her computer. Min Hui almost freaks out. Luckily, nothing serious happened. Otherwise, all the data saved on the laptop would be completely wiped. XinQi looks over the excellent business plan and decides to invest in the AI heart modeling software. As for the originally scheduled cancer screening projects, he rejects them without hesitation. After securing the project contract, Cao Mu suggests Min Hui take a day off. After all, she has worked herself to the bone for for 14 straight days. It is time to go out and have fun with Kukwon. XinQi gets a call from Kukwon and learns the mother and son are at an amusement park, so he heads straight there. While there, he casually helps Min Hui solve a problem, knowing exactly how to show off impressively. The three of them spend the whole day playing at the theme park, looking exactly like a happy family. This girl named Yao Zizhou fell in love at first sight with the cold Dr. Zhou Ruji. She barely managed to get his phone number. In her mind, she thought this would be a great start, but unexpectedly, he acted completely indifferent and even blocked her number. This only fuels her aggressive attacking spirit even more. Being the daughter of the head of cardiovascular surgery, Yao Zizhou uses her connections to apply as a hospital volunteer. With the help of other doctors, she manages to meet Zhou Ruji. She apologizes for the incident that got her blocked and uses her father's birthday as an excuse to invite him to go gift shopping with her. Left with no choice, Zhou Ruji can only agree. The girl proudly boasts that she is a great helper. The doctor reluctantly replies that he does not know how to repay such a huge favor. The two head to the mall together. It is then that Zhou Ruji realizes he has been tricked. They are not shopping for the department head. He is just standing there, watching Yao Zizhou's fashion show. On the way back, Zhou Ruji keeps staring at a pair of high heels. Yao Zizhou is thrilled because the shoe size he asks the staff for perfectly matches hers, but it turns out he is not buying them for Yao Zizhou. In her eyes, he is a cold doctor, but in reality he is an incredibly warm neighbor to someone else. When he returns to his apartment complex, and he happens to see Min Hui's family coming back from the amusement park, seeing their family looking so close and happy, Zhou Ruji is stunned and frozen. After managing to calm down, he approaches and gives the shoes to Min Hui. As the biological father of Min Hui's son, XinQi is extremely unhappy to see her accepting a gift from another man, especially when Min Hui goes inside and opens the gift box. He becomes even more curious. All his thoughts are fixated on Min Hui. Seeing her turning the shoes over and over as if cherishing something incredibly precious, XinQi is visibly displeased. So he takes this chance to criticize her lack of taste, saying those shoes actually suit Zhou Ruji perfectly. At that point, Min Hui is also annoyed. If he wants to trade insults, bring it on. Min Hui immediately slips her feet into the shoes and showers them with praise. She deliberately speaks loudly, praising how perfectly they fit, noting that such beautiful shoes must be kept carefully, and claiming the clicking sound of the heels is very pleasant to hear. XinQi angrily forbids her from polishing the shoes. The kindergarten is hosting a parent-child activity. Kukwon really wants his parents to attend with him, since all the other kids will have their parents there. Min Hui thinks about it for a while before hesitantly asking XinQi if he is free, but he says he will be going on a business trip abroad for the next few days. It turns out the AI heart modeling project that XinQi's company decided to invest in has faced skepticism from the shareholders, so XinQi needs to personally persuade them so the project can move forward. Min Hui does not want to put him in a difficult position, so she keeps the kindergarten activity as secret. Before leaving, XinQi and Hardy go to a shopping mall. He wants to pick out a really beautiful pair of shoes for Min Hui to strike back at his rival Zhou Ruji, but when he gives them to her, he claims they were a gift from a friend that did not fit, so he's passing them on to Min Hui. This makes Min Hui highly suspicious. Why would someone trying to win his favor buy women's shoes? He tells her to just take them, confidently declaring that these shoes are definitely prettier than the ones picked by someone else. Min Hui wants to refuse but cannot. XinQi incredibly attentively puts them on her feet himself. She quietly enjoys his thoughtful service, feeling a slight flutter in her heart. Feeling flustered, Min Hui uses work as an excuse to quickly escape, but when shopping with Cao Mu and getting complimented on the shoes, Min Hui feels happy. She buys a bunch of baking ingredients with the goal of bringing treats to the kindergarten extracurricular activity, but unfortunately, she has zero baking skills. As soon as she starts, she makes a total mess of everything. Kukwon grabs a phone and sends a picture to his dad, reporting that mom is trying really hard to bake, but he thinks she cannot pull it off. Sure enough, a moment later, the house is engulfed in smoke. Anyone who did not know better would think the house was on fire. It is not until he sees the charred, black cake that Zhou Ruji believes calling for backup was unnecessary. After getting hands-on guidance from him, Min Hui finally gets the hang of it. The two sit and chat about XinQi. Zhou Ruji worries their old romance will rekindle, but the good news is, Min Hui has absolutely no intention of getting back together. Zhou Ruji is incredibly happy, but unexpectedly, the events of the next day leave him disappointed. During the activity, Min Hui brings her homemade boar cake, wanting her son to share it with his classmates. Unexpectedly, the moment the kids see it, they all shake their heads in unison. Right at that moment, XinQi suddenly shows up carrying a full set of professional baking gear. instantly grabbing the kid's attention. This also makes Kuquan more popular with his friends. A little while later, XinQi's batch of pastries is fresh out of the oven, receiving endless praise from the kids. The three of them interact excitedly. Zhou Ruji arrives late, sees this scene, and silently turns to walk away. I want to thank you for making me not regret deciding to let Kuan acknowledge you. The kindergarten family activity truly bonded Min Hui's family together. XinQi specifically arranged to fly back early just to join his son. As a mother, Min Hui is deeply grateful. Her firm stance on never getting back together is also slowly softening bit by bit. Even at work, she constantly wears a bright, radiant smile, which Kaomu sees right through in an instant. Kaomu presses her best friend to tell the truth about whether there has been any new romantic progress. Min Hui then tells her the whole story. When she learns XinQi is actually Kuquan's biological father, Kaomu is absolutely stunned. Isn't this a romantic trope straight out of a TV drama? Fate has clearly destined them to be together. As her best friend, Kaomu advises her not to live in the shadow of the past forever. Happiness right now only requires genuine feelings. Everything else does not matter at all. Min Hui understands and decides that from now on, if she is clear about her own heart, she will stop running away. But not long after the two of them are about to share a sweet moment, she starts dodging him again. Here is the thing. The MIT project is in danger of being shut down. Min Hui needs to launch the AI model for heart disease treatment as soon as possible, especially proving its practical application in surgery to convince the company's other shareholders. So lately, she has been grinding out overtime every single day. Seeing Min Hui working so exhaustingly hard, XinQi leaves their son with Hardy and runs over to help her however he can. Min Hui is planning to print documents to take home and review slowly. Coincidentally, XinQi also walks over to the printer to grab some papers, and just like that, this super close distance makes them lock eyes. The lights suddenly go out right at this moment. Looking at Min Hui's flushed cheeks, XinQi simply cannot hold back. Just as he leans in closer, a bright light suddenly flashes right in their faces. A company security guard suddenly walks in shining a flashlight, making them both feel incredibly awkward. Unable to stammer out a proper explanation, Min Hui just hurries away. The next day, Kaomu receives a date invitation. Thinking she is about to get a sweet confession, she is super excited, so she immediately bids farewell to her best friend Min Hui. But unexpectedly, not only does she not get confessed to, but she also has to sit and watch other people confess to each other. Kaomu is so angry she feels incredibly frustrated. But as her boyfriend, Suzy Quan, fails to realize the severity of the situation, he cluelessly takes his girlfriend to the movies. However, right as the movie ends, something unexpected happens. A friend of mine wanted to borrow this spot to declare his love to his girl in front of everyone. Kaomu is thrilled now, turning to look at her boyfriend with incredibly affectionate eyes. Unexpectedly, her hopes are dashed once again. The person getting confessed to is not her, but someone else. Kaomu is extremely annoyed because she has spent the whole time watching other people's romance. Getting home, Kaomu calls her best friend to vent, but Min Hui, being swamped with work, does not have much free time to listen. After a quick, brief chat, they hang up. She needs a specific medical record to use as a sample for her project, but after searching for days, she still has not found a suitable one. Because of this, XinQi proactively hands her his own medical records, but at the same time, he strictly demands she never leak it to anyone else. If word gets out that the CEO of Bluebird Group once suffered from severe heart disease, the company's stock price will definitely crash wildly. Min Hui is quite touched. The next day, she accompanies XinQi to the hospital for a checkup, but right as she walks in, she sees this sight. Min Hui gasps in shock. XinQi complains she is acting like she has never seen this before. Min Hui justifies herself, saying mainly because his body has nothing worth looking at anyway. She talks tough, but remembering she did not get a good look just now, Min Hui feels a tinge of regret. After finishing the checkup, seeing Min Hui standing and chatting closely with Zhou Ruji makes XinQi very unhappy. He immediately fakes a headache, claiming he needs some quiet space. He plans to smoothly get rid of Zhou Ruji by saying he would feel better if Min Hui massaged his temples. Unexpectedly, Min Hui walks away with Zhou Ruji, leaving him with absolute quiet space. This time, XinQi feels extremely frustrated, but it turns out Min Hui ran off to buy chocolate, wanting XinQi to eat something sweet. XinQi, waiting impatiently in the room, runs out to look for her, but unexpectedly, he accidentally overhears Zhou Ruji bluntly rejecting Yao Zizhou's pursuit, stating the reason is that he already has someone in his heart. After seeing XinQi, Zhou Ruji frankly admits he has liked Min Hui for 4 years now, and believes that one day she will definitely see his good qualities. XinQi uses the girl who just walked by as an example, challenging him by asking if he would fall for her just because she treated him nicely. XinQi delivers a massive psychological blow, and walks back to his room confidently. But when he walks in, he finds Min Hui asleep on the sofa. Her peaceful sleeping face completely captivates him, so he sits quietly watching her while eating his chocolate. But it turns out Min Hui is already awake, just keeping her eyes shut, pretending to sleep out of embarrassment. Seeing her occasionally peek out at him, XinQi almost bursts out laughing. Min Hui cannot keep pretending and just sits up to chat with him. Min Hui recounts her incredibly brief encounter. Min Hui sighs, saying she never thought there would come a day when they could sit calmly and talk about Sutian. In a cramped elevator, a man reaches his hand out, intending to do something shady. Just as the people around him start getting suspicious, the young man standing next to him smacks his hand hard. The man asks the young guy what he is doing. The young guy accuses the creep of touching his butt and points out that he was also harassing the girl in front of him, who had not even spoken up yet. The man tries to deny and make excuses. Min Hui, standing nearby, points at the security camera screen above and takes out her phone, threatening to call the police. Seeing this, the guilty man quickly tries to run away, but he is swiftly restrained by Su Ziquan. Afterward, everyone hands him over to the police to be dealt with. When Cao Mu shows up, Min Hui finally learns that Su Ziquan is her new boyfriend. Cao Mu originally planned to introduce her boyfriend properly to Min Hui, but she never expected things to turn out like this. All three marvel at the sheer coincidence. Min Hui also praises her best friend for having good taste this time, finally finding a decent and reliable partner. But she has no idea that Su Ziquan is actually Su Tian's biological younger brother. Scene change. XinQi contacts the company shareholders and receives news that the MIT project has been officially approved. Min Hui is thrilled and immediately calls to invite XinQi out for a meal. XinQi is really looking forward to this date, so he specifically buys a new outfit and even gets cosmetics as a gift for Min Hui. The three of them have an incredibly wonderful time, but unexpected things always happen right at this moment. As they are about to leave, Min Hui receives a phone call. After standing and talking for a bit, XinQi walks out of the restroom, and the two realize their son has gone missing. They frantically ask others around but get no information. With no other choice, they split up to search. Min Hui is so panicked, she is on the verge of tears. Just as she is about to dial the police, she suddenly gets a call. It turns out Kuquan saw his dad give his mom a gift, so he wanted to give his mom a surprise too. So the little boy quietly wandered off, walking to a clothing store to buy something. But when he got to the checkout counter, he had no money, so the sales clerk checked his emergency contact to call Min Hui. Knowing he got lost and scared his mom, Kuquan immediately apologizes, and XinQi is incredibly grateful that Min Hui raised their son to be so understanding. So instead of loudly scolding her for not watching him properly, he keeps apologizing. Min Hui is deeply moved. You have given Kuquan a complete family. Maybe we can let go of everything in the past, and as parents, continue taking care of him together. Min Hui has decided to forget the past and start completely over, so she also plans to buy a gift for XinQi. But unexpectedly, she accidentally spots a file regarding a custody dispute. Remembering his firm promise that he would not take their son away, and how he used staying with his son as an excuse to move into her house, she feels like she has been played. Furious, Min Hui demands an explanation from XinQi, forcing him to admit that approaching them was just to win favor and gain the upper hand in the lawsuit. She questions if all his good deeds toward her and her son lately were entirely calculated. She firmly declares that no one has the right to snatch Kuquan away from her. She orders that starting from today, he is absolutely forbidden from seeing Kuquan ever again. XinQi stands frozen, unable to speak. In reality, he not only wanted custody but also wanted to get back together with Min Hui. But because he had a careless wingman, this whole thing turned into a massive mess. As a result, misunderstandings just keep piling up. The chairman asserts that if XinQi really loves little Quan that much, he absolutely must win custody for him. Back at his house, XinQi feels incredibly frustrated, tossing and turning until midnight, unable to sleep. Hardy knows he messed up, so he tries hard to persuade him not to worry, advising him to just patiently wait for Min Hui to calm down and then go explain everything clearly tomorrow. Unexpectedly, XinQi remains very stubborn. He drops a harsh line, complaining that he never wanted to live in her tiny house anyway, and insists he did absolutely nothing wrong in this situation. But looking around his spacious yet empty mansion and the backyard pool he has never even used once, XinQi suddenly feels very angry. So he orders Hardy to call someone tomorrow to replace all of this. Later, unable to stand the emptiness anymore, he finally drops his arrogance and runs off to find Min Hui to explain, only to hear she has requested a leave of absence. Maybe she is sick? Zhou Ruji happens to hear about it, so both men head to Min Hui's house. The result is that this time XinQi XinQi is blocked. Outside, forced to watch Zhou Ruji happily walk in. Seeing Zhou Ruji looking a bit confused, Min Hui tells him the truth. Hearing this, Zhou Ruji quickly mentions he knows a specialist who handles these types of lawsuits. If she needs it, he will help her get in touch. Min Hui immediately expresses her deep gratitude. Zhou Ruji adds that judges tend to grant custody to parents who have a happy family. If necessary, they can fake a marriage, and after winning custody, they can divorce. But this proposal is firmly rejected by Min Hui because she does not want to take advantage of someone else's kindness, and she only sees him as a good friend. But this makes Zhou Ruji incredibly heartbroken. He bitterly wonders how long it will take for Min Hui to understand that he absolutely does not want her to just see him as a good friend. The MIT project catches the special attention of a tech summit. The organizers send an invitation specifically naming Min Hui, wanting her to give a speech on the main stage. Unexpectedly, General Manager He Haitang brings up the banquet incident to scold her, saying he wants to give this opportunity to Ding Yifeng. Losing face in Xincheng is one thing, but losing face at a high-tech summit would destroy Bayan's reputation. He wants to force Min Hui to hand her speaking spot over to Ding Yifeng. This makes Min Hui feel incredibly wronged. She immediately and fiercely fires back, pointing out that her name is clearly written on the invitation, and if she cannot go, then no one from the company is going either. At worst, the company will just lose its chance to show off its strength to the industry. Helpless, He Haitang has to give up on that plan. Meanwhile, XinQi also receives an invitation. Seeing Hardy busy prepping his clothes, he reminds him that the opening is still days away, asking why he is worrying so early. However, when he rushes to Bayan Company to find Min Hui, he learns she has already boarded a flight and left without him. Now he starts panicking because he specifically hired a lawyer to draft a reconciliation document for Min Hui, so he immediately orders his assistant to urgently buy a plane ticket. As for Min Hui, right after boarding the plane with Kuquan, she gets the happy news of an upgrade to business class. After getting off the plane, the hotel offers her an unusually high amount of perks, making her suspicious, and she immediately refuses their kindness. When XinQi lands and sees Min Hui is not there, he feels a bit disappointed, knowing full well that getting close to her is not easy at all. XinQi reviews his prep documents and runs out to look for Min Hui. Unexpectedly, a woman runs out of nowhere and kisses him on the cheek. Making matters worse, Min Hui is standing right there watching, leaving him absolutely panicked. XinQi frantically runs over to explain to the mother and son. It turns out that woman is his adoptive older sister, Cindy. Cindy is the chairwoman of Blue Bird Group, living abroad all year round. She knows quite a few four-character idioms, but never knows how to use them correctly, which leads to Kuquan having to constantly correct her mistakes. But the more she uses them wrong, the more she likes to use them. When talking about the custody battle with Min Hui, Cindy misspeaks and blunders, causing Min Hui to misunderstand XinQi even more. Cindy uses the idiom, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will win every battle, to express her desire to understand Min Hui and Kuquan more. Thinking that way she won't have to work so hard later, Min Hui flatly refuses, asserting that she can raise her son on her own and does not need their pity. XinQi irritably asks Cindy if she actually knows what that idiom really means, explaining that her actions made Min Hui view him as an enemy, making the current situation even worse. Helpless, XinQi has to go find a quiet place to drink away his sorrows, not knowing what to do to salvage this. Min Hui gently asks Kuquan if he was forced to choose. Would he rather live with his dad or his mom? Kuquan obediently chooses Min Hui, saying that even though XinQi is very nice, he still loves his mom the most. Min Hui constantly lives in fear that XinQi will find a way to take custody of their son, making the situation between them incredibly tense. To clear up the misunderstanding, XinQi decides to hire a lawyer to draft a contract handing over full custody, only asking for the right to visit his son once a week. Min Hui agrees and signs the paper, but still feels a lingering sense of frustration and loss inside. After handing the agreement back, she begins walking her guest to the door. Kuquan, standing nearby and listening, obediently waves goodbye to his dad, but a different plan sparks in his mind. Kuquan secretly made a prior arrangement with his dad, so he stubbornly begs his mom to go camping. Having made no prior preparations, Min Hui refuses. Unexpectedly, right? At this moment, Cao Mu calls and says she has already prepared everything. Min Hui wonders how Cao Mu knew Kuquan wanted to go camping. The little boy quickly confesses that he was the one who told her. Cao Mu also confirms this fact. Trusting them, Min Hui gets in the car with her son and heads to the beach. Upon arriving, she happens to bump into XinQi. Only then does she realize she has been tricked. Although a bit displeased, seeing the father and son happily setting up the tent together makes Min Hui's anger fade away. The relationship she constantly tries to push away, somehow naturally gets pulled back together. Playing until late at night, the family of three happily returns together. Just as they are about to head to their respective rooms, Min Hui unexpectedly gets a call from Cao Mu inviting her out for drinks, so XinQi volunteers to take their son back to his room. After chatting and blowing off steam with Cao Mu, Min Hui heads over to XinQi's place. But seeing the father and son playing so happily, and Qiuquan still wanting to play more, and not wanting to go back with his mom yet, Min Hui has no other choice but to sit right there and prepare the materials for her speech tomorrow, planning to take her son back to their room in half an hour. But as a result of sheer exhaustion, she falls asleep shortly after. XinQi sits there watching the peaceful sleeping face of the woman across from him, unable to bear waking her up. He then carefully carries her back to the room. Min Hui wakes up with a start and opens her eyes. This time, the opportunity is right in front of them, and two restless hearts begin to slowly draw closer. But unexpected things always strike at the exact moment. Qiuquan's tossing and turning startles them, making them pull apart. There was almost a romantic moment, but Qiuquan got in the way. Min Hui says she wants to take their son back to sleep, so XinQi immediately stands up and says he will leave. XinQi softly announces his departure and urges her to go to sleep quickly. Hearing his gentle, caring words, Min Hui feels incredibly warm and happy. The professional medical summit is scheduled for Min Hui to give the opening speech, but she suddenly receives a notice that her speech has been cancelled. It turns out Lin Xue discovered Min Hui was going to give the opening address, so Chang Qirong colluded with the person in charge of the organizing committee to cancel that speech. But for Min Hui, this opportunity is truly crucial. Whether the project can be recognized by industry professionals depends entirely on this current moment. Therefore, Min Hui struggles to fight back, offering to voluntarily cut her presentation time down to just 12 minutes. Even if she is scheduled as the very last speaker, that is fine. Finally, the person in charge reluctantly agrees. Unexpectedly, after everyone finishes speaking, the person in charge grabs the microphone and directly announces the closing of the summit. After that, the organizing committee also hosts a banquet so everyone has time to network, exchange ideas, and gain deeper understanding. Min Hui suddenly becomes incredibly anxious. She quickly throws away her hesitation, rushing straight to the middle of the hall before people have a chance to stand up and leave. She boldly asks out loud if someone is secretly playing tricks to deliberately stop her from speaking. She earnestly states that her speech really only takes 10 minutes, and anyone interested can stay and listen for a bit. Hearing her sincerity, everyone sits back down in unison. Seeing this, the person in charge has no choice but to helplessly let her proceed. Just like that, Min Hui stands and delivers her speech with comfort and confidence. Her highly confident presentation style, combined with detailed and accurate data, quickly earns the respect of her industry peers. As Min Hui's former lover, XinQi sits in the audience, clapping enthusiastically and looking up at her with captivated eyes. Min Hui's massively successful speech receives passionate support from many colleagues. XinQi later specially prepares and gifts her a gorgeous evening gown to wear to the dinner banquet. Even though verbally Min Hui keeps complaining that he picked an ugly dress, when she puts it on, she feels incredibly happy and joyful. The moment she steps into the hall, Min Hui leaves everyone in awe. Seeing the business partners around them shifting their attention to Min Hui one by one, Cheng Qirong and Lin Xue feel very dissatisfied and jealous, and so, these two start playing dirty tricks again. Lin Xue deliberately approaches and talks to Qiuquan, then physically grabs hold of the little boy, scaring him into screaming to attract the crowd's attention. Then, when Min Hui frantically runs over to protect her son, Lin Xue snidely remarks how she manages to balance her career despite the hardships of raising a child all alone. She adds how pitiful the child looks, being this old and still not knowing who his father is. With Lin Xue's words, Min Hui instantly becomes the image of a single mother, surrounded by rampant speculation in everyone's eyes. Even if Cao Mu steps up to defend her, it is hard to sway the opinions of those around them. The other people around keep buzzing with gossip. XinQi simply cannot bear to watch his woman being given a hard time. He immediately strides forward, boldly declaring in front of everyone that he is Qiuquan's biological father. At this moment, everyone is completely stunned and speechless. Cheng Qirong also did not see that coming. Seeing XinQi and Min Hui proudly walking away from the crowd hand in hand, Cindy and Cao Mu both feel a sense of pride. Cindy proudly asks her younger brother if he thinks she is super cool. Cao Mu also smugly asks her best friend if she looks beautiful. Zhou Ruji scrolls through a post where Min Hui shared photos of the father and son happily playing at the beach. He bitterly realizes that no matter how much conflict those two have, they will ultimately be connected back together by their their child. Because of this, he feels incredibly depressed and sad. But right at that moment, Yao Zizhou's appearance interrupts his train of thought. She then invites him to go out and have some fun to relax. But the thing she claims will boost his mood turns out to be going to the cinema to watch a horror movie. Inside the theater, Zhou Ruji watches casually, not paying much attention. Meanwhile, Yao Zizhou pretends to be terrified and inches closer to him. After a few failed attempts, she directly grabs his arm and hugs it tightly. Having no other way to refuse, Zhou Ruji just lets her do what she wants. Finally, the movie ends. Yao Zizhou also frankly admits that she deliberately chose to buy horror movie tickets because she wanted to have more physical contact with him. She adds that even though she knows Zhou Ruji still has not let go of his feelings for his ex, it is okay. Eventually, there will come a day when he can let it go. She says that even though he plays the supporting male role over there, by her side, he is always the leading man. Faced with such incredibly straightforward and sincere words, Zhou Ruji feels a flutter of emotion. For the first time, he takes the initiative to invite Yao Zizhou out for a late-night snack. On the other side, Min Hui and Xin Qi leave the reception hand in hand. After having a bit of alcohol, Min Hui boldly asks straight up, "Do you still like me?" The sudden question leaves Xin Qi flustered, not knowing how to answer. After thinking for a moment, just as he decides to give his answer, Min Hui is no longer conscious. She throws up all over him. Even after Xin Qi finishes cleaning up, changing clothes, and coming out, she is already fast asleep. It is not until the next day, when Min Hui wakes up, that she suddenly remembers the embarrassing events of last night and immediately regrets it. Alcoholic beverages are truly not a good thing. She had a hard time gathering enough courage to dare ask, so she should have stayed awake to hear it to the end. But before she can run off to ask, Xin Qi is already prepared. There are two dummy dolls respectively representing him and Min Hui. Every detail of their past is acted out and retold by Xin Qi. He sincerely apologizes while also thanking her. He thanks her for taking such good care of their son. He says he will use the rest of his life to repay Min Hui's efforts. Min Hui is moved to tears. Then, Xin Qi takes out the keepsake bracelet from 5 years ago and personally puts it on her wrist. Just as he is about to make another romantic confession, Su Ziquan suddenly walks in and interrupts them. Su Ziquan aggressively questions Min Hui, asking if it's true that Su Tian actually died in that car accident years ago. He suspects that at the last minute, wanting to survive, she fought her way off the bus first, heartlessly stealing his sister's chance at survival. He loudly accuses her, saying the person who died that day should have been her. She is the one who killed Su Tian, who killed his sister. It turns out that not long ago, Su Ziquan received a notice from the police, saying they had found information about his sister, but she had passed away in a tragic bus crash 5 years ago. At that time, Su Tian supposedly could have gotten off the bus together with a girl named Min Hui, but he doesn't know why things ended up the way they did. Because of this, Su Ziquan suspects Min Hui was indirectly involved in what happened to Su Tian. According to Su Ziquan's analysis, Su Tian was fully capable of getting off the bus first, but because she had an altercation with Min Hui, she couldn't escape in time. Faced with Su Ziquan's relentless questioning, Min Hui is in deep shock and doesn't know how to answer. At this moment, Xin Qi also steps in. Xin Qi asks Min Hui what really happened to Su Tian, and if it's true like what he's accusing her of. Min Hui is stunned for a moment. She didn't expect that the person who had just said such touching, cheesy words would now so easily turn his back and trust an outsider's accusations. She was already heartbroken and filled with self-blame over Su Tian's passing. Now being doubted by the man she loves makes the pain even more agonizing. Tao Mu hurriedly rushes over to intervene, but Min Hui temporarily ignores her. She also doesn't speak up to explain anything. Instead, she turns and tells Xin Qi that if they have any doubts, they should just go report it to the law. Then she coldly demands both men get out. Immediately after, Cao Mu follows them all the way to the door and angrily speaks to Xin Qi. Cao Mu tells Xin Qi that Min Hui has fallen in love with him time and time again, and she feels incredibly wronged on her friend's behalf. She asserts that a woman's psychology is very simple. If a man doesn't offer 100% trust, they absolutely don't need him. The two men stand outside analyzing the situation regarding Su Tian. Inside the room, Min Hui collapses, crying miserably. She takes off the bracelet Xin Qi just gave her and makes a decisive decision. When Su Ziquan loudly declares he will never forgive Min Hui, she calmly appears behind the two of them. She says she doesn't need their forgiveness. If they really want to know the truth, they should go to the scene of the incident. There's a witness there who can prove she's completely innocent. After that, the three of them immediately catch a flight to Xi'an town. Through the police records handling the case from that year, they locate the eyewitness who saw everything firsthand. According to this person's account, account, that year the bus suddenly lost control and careened off the road due to a tire blowout. When the passengers on the bus saw this, they panicked and scrambled to escape one after another. Min Hui and Su Tian were supporting each other, also preparing to get off the bus to escape. Unexpectedly, Su Tian suddenly pushed Min Hui away forcefully, turning back alone to pick up a photo that had dropped on the floor. Min Hui intended to go back and help Su Tian, but out of nowhere, the bus tilted, causing her to be thrown out violently. The others didn't say it happened that way. The witness insists that at the time, he was the only person on the bus standing closest to these two girls. He declares he'll stake his character on the line to guarantee the words he just spoke are completely accurate. At this point, Suziquan finally has nothing left to argue or add, and XinQi feels an immense sense of regret and discomfort in his heart. Min Hui hands the photo Su Tian picked up over to Suziquan. It turns out it's a photo of Suziquan and Su Tian together from when they lived at the welfare home. Min Hui tells Suziquan that before that unfortunate incident happened, she was trapped in hopeless despair due to some troubles in her life. Su Tian's optimistic smile gave her the strength to pull herself out of the negativity. Therefore, if Suziquan is willing, he can treat her like an older sister. XinQi, who suddenly appears behind the two, hears this and breaks into a relieved smile. But because she was doubted by the man she loves, Min Hui still sits crying miserably and is firmly determined to cut off all contact with him. Now that the misunderstanding has been cleared up, XinQi thinks he has been forgiven, but no matter what he says, Min Hui remains stubborn and refuses to let it go. Even when leaving to head back to the city, she doesn't say a word to him. XinQi asks around to see if anyone has seen Min Hui. The person next to him informs him that this morning she sent a text saying she'd head back first and wouldn't be on the same flight with everyone else. As XinQi and Suziquan walk around visiting the old places, Suziquan asks if he hadn't mistakenly identified Min Hui as Su Tian, would he still have loved her? XinQi replies firmly that he would, because the person he loves is not someone with the name Su Tian, but a flesh and blood person standing right in front of his eyes. Min Hui. Suziquan understands immediately. XinQi has been secretly funding this orphanage throughout all these years. Hearing he came to visit, the director personally comes out to greet him and mentions that Min Hui also stopped by here this morning. Hearing this, XinQi gets excited and immediately runs out to search for her. Finally, on a vast green meadow, he finds Min Hui, but compared to his frantic state, Min Hui is somewhat calm and cold. Only XinQi doesn't care and still pours out his heart. XinQi confesses that he likes her and he deeply hopes that in the days to come, she'll be by his side. But Min Hui firmly refuses to accept. Their story from 5 years ago is already over. Even though their recent relationship made Min Hui want to start over, that incident painfully made her realize there are always invisible barriers between them. She doesn't want to follow the same disastrous path and make a similar mistake in the future because of Su Tian's lingering shadow. Therefore, she doesn't want to accept XinQi anymore. Min Hui draws a line, stating that from today onward, the two of them are only Kuquan's parents. She demands that apart from that, they absolutely shouldn't get tangled up in anything else. Having said her piece, Min Hui stands up, turns on her heel, and walks away, leaving XinQi sitting there alone in a daze. After returning home, Zhou asks about her and XinQi. When he learns that the two really have officially ended their relationship, Zhou secretly rejoices. But after another long conversation, he bitterly realizes he also has absolutely no chance. On the other side, XinQi got rejected, but stubbornly refuses to give up. He keeps continuously sending messages, checking in on Min Hui without getting tired. Even though he never gets a reply, the silence can't change his determination to persistently hang on. Min Hui asks him if he's not looking for her for work-related matters. Then she's sorry. She clearly explains that their relationship right now is strictly professional, so regarding anything outside of work, she has no obligation to answer him. XinQi is still confused, not knowing whether to call Min Hui his girlfriend or his ex-wife. Because of one foolish act, he's paying a very steep price. To salvage and rescue this relationship, he even has to go online for help, searching for ways to coax the person he loves. Unfortunately, those tips offer no hope at all. Unexpectedly, Hardy tells him that all misunderstandings are very easy to resolve. Hearing this, XinQi immediately and respectfully invites Hardy to sit on the lounge chair, while he obediently sits below holding an umbrella like a little puppy. Because XinQi pleads so earnestly, Hardy has no choice but to tell the truth. He once read a romance book that said no matter how tough a woman is, she's terrified of a man clinging to her relentlessly, so just sticking close to her might actually be the best method. Besides, they also share a child together. XinQi nods, acknowledging the advice seems somewhat correct, and asks his secretary what book he read. When he learns the book's title is The Doting Husband of a Successful Woman, XinQi immediately immediately orders him to go buy this book right away. Buy as many copies as there are, and if there are Volume 1 and Volume 2, buy the entire set and bring it back here. Buy the entire set and bring it back here. That night, XinQi uses the excuse of bringing Kuquan back to get inside the house. He even has the thick skin to stay and freeload a meal. Afterward, he casually suggests going to the movies. However, the moment they get down to the building's lobby, Min Hui ruthlessly ditches the father and son, going out to have fun and relax on her own. This leaves XinQi feeling disappointed and drained of all energy to do anything. Later, he goes to a bar and meets up with Su Ziquan. The two miserable men in love form an alliance. Su Ziquan analyzes the current situation. Min Hui is ignoring XinQi, but she still cares about him. Conversely, Cao Mu currently doesn't want to see Su Ziquan, but XinQi can easily approach and talk to her. Following Su Ziquan's analytical advice, on the first day of executing the plan, Min Hui opens the door to her office and smells an overwhelming fragrance of flowers filling the room. Her nose feels so itchy and uncomfortable that she immediately starts sneezing non-stop. She then tells her coworkers to gather all the flowers on her desk and throw them away. On the third day, Min Hui sees cheesy love notes that make her grit her teeth. She's so furious she wants to block and hit someone. On the fourth day, XinQi uses work as an excuse to attend a meeting at Bayan, deliberately sliding over to sit next to Min Hui. He keeps inching closer to her and continuously batting his eyes affectionately. Min Hui is so annoyed she forcefully shoves him away with her hand. As the men who made the mistakes, Su Ziquan and XinQi form an alliance to chase love again. Unexpectedly, they continuously hit a brick wall and face difficulties with the girls. Having no other choice, the two men go to a bar to drink their sorrows away, only able to hold their faces and sigh. At the same time, they discuss upgrading to new pursuit tactics. XinQi gives Su Ziquan a secret guidebook. My Hardy personally verified and practiced this, so you can rest assured the ultimate moves written inside are specifically for dealing with tough women like Cao Mu. Just copy them exactly. And Su Ziquan imparts his wisdom to XinQi, saying no woman in the world can resist the deadly temptation of abs. If you want to win her heart, you have to directly show off your manliness. Later, with the supporting approval of his son Kuquan, XinQi unbuttons his shirt and appears right in front of Min Hui. Min Hui panics and asks what the hell he's doing. Min Hui feels incredibly embarrassed and blushes, not daring to look at XinQi the entire evening. She's afraid others will judge and lump her into the same perverted category as him. On the other side, Su Ziquan blocks Cao Mu's path in the parking lot. He pushes her down onto the front hood of the car in an incredibly domineering way. Thinking he's on the verge of success, suddenly 3 security guards spot them and jump out, scaring him so much he grabs his pants and runs for his life. Yet another love pursuit ends in disastrous failure. The two turn around and blame each other for using useless tactics. During this time, Su Ziquan racks his brain to come up with a new trick. He instigates XinQi to find Kuquan for backup support, then shamelessly and brazenly move his luggage into Min Hui's house. Being at close range makes launching an attack easier, no matter what. So, just as Min Hui returns home exhausted from working overtime and is lying on the sofa resting with her eyes closed, XinQi suddenly looms over her. Hearing XinQi say he wants to move in together, Min Hui almost goes crazy. She even loudly scolds Kuquan. But the brilliant acting of these two rising father and son actors leaves her completely helpless. XinQi and Quan start their act, lamenting that a child with separated parents is truly pitiful. A child without a father looks just like a wild weed. XinQi adds that a father without his child also withers like a weed, and moans about how she could bear to let 2 blades of grass be separated like this. Seeing XinQi clinging like a starving leech, Min Hui has no choice but to hand the house over to him, swallowing her anger and demanding to move out. After Min Hui leaves in a furious huff, the father and son sit whispering to each other. XinQi asks his son to guess whose house Min Hui will go sleep at. Quan analyzes that if she doesn't go to Auntie Cao Mu's house, Mom will definitely go to Dad Zhao's house. Hearing this sentence, XinQi instantly becomes frantic with worry, so he hauls his legs and runs over to his neighbor Zhou Ruji's house to check. The result is he's blocked outside the door by Zhou Ruji. No matter how much he pleads, he's not allowed in. Then Zhou Ruji directly slams the door shut. XinQi is so mad, he stands there muttering curses. But it turns out Zhou Ruji was afraid the other guy would see Yao Zizhou's birthday gift and laugh at him, which is why he hid it and didn't let him inside. At the same time, Min Hui and her best friend Cao Mu are sitting together drinking. The two girls look relaxed, but in reality their hearts are full of troubles. Min Hui hugs her wine glass and sighs. Min Hui sighs, wondering why love isn't as simple and logical as writing code. You write a program, and it obediently runs exactly as expected. Cao Mu complains about Su Ziquan Quan having an emotional IQ so low, he has no ability to coax people. The more they bring things up, the sadder they get. So Min Hui decides to stop and focus on work. Only working can relieve the stress. She tells herself not to care about men or any romantic matters anymore. But the more she tries to forget, the harder it is to forget, especially when XinQi is always clinging and appearing right by her side. If he's not standing squarely at home waiting, he goes all the way up to her company to wait. He even sidles up and probes to see if she spent the night at Zhou Ruji's place. Hearing this jealous attitude, Min Hui decides to let him go crazy with misunderstanding till the bitter end. But unexpectedly, right at this moment, Cao Mu arrives to return her phone. "Here, you came over to drink yesterday and left it at my place." This clears up the truth. XinQi naturally feels a surge of joy in his heart. He whistles and walks away in cheerful excitement. Afterward, he uses money to bribe Min Hui's co-workers, turning them into insiders to help him pursue her. But Min Hui suddenly appears behind him and tells him not to waste his efforts for nothing. Cao Mu purposely chimes in, saying she'll take Min Hui on a blind date to find someone new. Hearing this, XinQi is shocked and freezes on the spot, but he still stubbornly forces a fake smile. XinQi confidently assumes he can't be fooled by this, asserting he understands her personality too well. Originally, Min Hui never had any thought of going on a blind date, but stung by XinQi's goading words, she changes her decision. Just as XinQi and Su Ziquan are sitting drinking and complaining, Kuquan video calls with an urgent alert for him. Seeing Min Hui gorgeously picking out clothes to go on a blind date, XinQi and Su Ziquan instantly panic with worry. The two men frantically rack their brains for a way to stop her. Kuquan at home isn't idle either. The little boy stacks his teddy bears together as if building a fortress wall, planning to use it to stop his mom from going out on the blind date. And XinQi suddenly calls, lying that the company has an emergency meeting so he can't come pick up their son. With no other option, Min Hui can only take her son along to the meeting spot. But she waits until her neck is stiff and her blind date still doesn't show up. Kuquan secretly cheers his dad on to keep fighting because he really doesn't want to call another man. "Dad?" Min Hui sits waiting for the date. XinQi disguises himself and hides in a corner, coordinating with his son to sabotage this date. When Min Hui's date finally appears, Kuquan purposely acts like a very naughty child, wanting to make the guy feel discouraged and back off. The result is the guy doesn't mind or hold it against him at all. He even happily says he really loves kids. The two adults chat and laugh boisterously. XinQi mutters jealously because she's only met the blind date for a few minutes and is already laughing so happily. He feels sorry for himself because he's never seen her smile so radiantly when she's with him. Realizing Kuquan's sabotage efforts have failed, XinQi is still unwilling to accept defeat, so he bursts out to make a move himself. He uses work as an excuse to drag Min Hui back to the company. Unexpectedly, she sharply sees right through him, so he clumsily and quickly lies that he was just passing by to pick up their son. Then XinQi immediately runs up to the second floor and carries Kuquan away. Dropping just a few sarcastic remarks, he manages to chase Min Hui's blind date away. This makes her incredibly annoyed and angry. On the other side, because Su Ziquan wants to stop Cao Mu from going on a blind date, he listens to XinQi's advice. He uses the tactic of throwing himself at a car to extort pity from Cao Mu. But unexpectedly, because he was pedaling his bike too fast, he actually crashes hard and faceplants. Suddenly, another man also rushes out, intending to pull the exact same scam. As a result, while Cao Mu is standing speechless and bewildered, Su Ziquan appears like a hero saving a beauty to rescue her. When she learns Su Ziquan got scraped up trying to protect her, Cao Mu feels a sharp pang of heartache. She personally helps bandage his wounds and softens, agreeing to forgive him. But while Min Hui is scolding XinQi, Cao Mu decides to hide the fact that she is reconciled and made up with Su Ziquan. She even purposely lies that her blind date was a failure, so she'll have to arrange to see more people in the future. This makes Su Ziquan very anxious. Su Ziquan anxiously asks why she's still, saying she's going to keep going on blind dates. Cao Mu explains she's actually doing this just to help Min Hui, because if she goes along, her best friend will be more motivated to go on blind dates. Hearing this, Su Ziquan can't help but worry for his buddy, so he runs to advise XinQi, "You should try to put aside your pride and bossy CEO attitude. Instead, try acting cute and cuddly, or even pretending to be pitiful and weak. After all, women all have maternal instincts, so they are easily moved and softened by these things, and the success rate is very high." XinQi thinks this makes sense. That night, he goes out and sits huddled on a stone bench waiting for Min Hui to come home. He clutches his chest, pretending to have a heart attack to trick her into panicking and giving him CPR. Unexpectedly, Min Hui sharply sees right through his acting scheme. Not only does it fail, but it also makes Min Hui even more annoyed with him. The next day, Min Hui asks Cao Mu to help arrange a few more blind dates. Cao Mu happily agrees and says she understands the issue. Min Hui is truly pitiful as a single mother. Lately, she's been constantly stalked and bothered by the child's father. To escape this oppressive situation, she has continuously agreed to go on blind dates. But the men she meets are all sorts of awful losers. If they aren't criticizing her for being an older woman, they're demanding she give birth before they'll agree to register the marriage. Just a few sentences of conversation are enough to annoy Min Hui. One arrogant blind date declares that a man's value is vastly different from a woman's. He uses himself as an example, claiming that although he's 32, he's at the peak of his masculine charm. He sarcastically advises her to look at women, arguing that once they pass the age of 30, they get older and lose their value. Faced with these insulting words, no matter how high his salary or how good his educational background is, the more she listens, the more disgusted and uncomfortable Min Hui gets. So she bluntly and loudly scolds him for being sloppy, then confidently grabs her bag and leaves. Unexpectedly, just as she walks out, she is blocked by her rival Chen Qirong, who drops a sleazy remark saying he wants to keep her as his mistress. Fortunately, XinQi appears right on time. He doesn't hesitate to punch the scumbag straight in the face. Even though XinQi stepped in to help her escape, she remains stubborn and refuses to forgive him. Even when he keeps relentlessly following and bothering her, she has no intention of softening and getting back together. XinQi pleads with her. From now on, could she please stop going on blind dates with those terrible men? Min Hui sets a condition. Fine. As long as he knows how to keep a safe distance from her, she won't go anymore. XinQi confidently and boldly declares he will openly pursue her all over again. Unexpectedly, his heart suddenly twinges with severe pain. Min Hui sees this and instantly gets worried, but XinQi forces a smile and asks her, "Could you stay by my side just a little bit longer?" But Min Hui stays alert, thinking he's pulling his old acting trick again. Not long after, XinQi suffers a severe relapse and has to be hospitalized, but he still doesn't want Min Hui to worry. When video calling Qi Quan, he lies and says he's on a business trip abroad. He even specifically asks someone to find a green screen background image to edit in and fool Min Hui. Hardy, standing outside, can't bear to see his boss suffer, so he secretly sells him out. When Min Hui learns the truth, she burns with intense anxiety. She immediately picks up her son and runs to the hospital to visit him. Min Hui scolds him. Before, he faked being sick to trick her into worrying and caring for him. Yet now, when he's genuinely ill, he stupidly pretends not to be sick because he's afraid she'll worry. With just these few simple scolding words, Min Hui decides to cancel all her schedules to stay and take care of him. And XinQi also thoroughly enjoys the warm atmosphere of a family of three. He secretly wishes he could stay sick for a few more days. The sudden appearance of his older sister Cindy shatters his dream. XinQi frowns and blames his sister. The second she stepped foot in here, Min Hui saw he had someone to take care of him, so she immediately took their son and left. But the confidential intelligence Cindy brings catches XinQi's intense interest. Bayan's largest shareholder is making moves to sell off the company. Hearing this, XinQi immediately orders Hardy to urgently calculate Bayan's market valuation, because if it gets acquired by other rival companies, Min Hui's passionate MIT project will definitely be frozen and affected. Therefore, he plans to splash the cash and buy Bayan outright to ensure this project can continue developing freely, to get back together and make up with Min Hui. XinQi has pulled countless tricks, yet still met with failure, but he doesn't feel discouraged or disheartened at all. The moment he's discharged from the hospital and returns home, he starts his routine of pretending to be weak and pitiful to gain sympathy. He wants to use this self-inflicted suffering trick to keep Min Hui around to serve and care for him. His sister Cindy and son Ku Quan also team up to help him. The three of them, adults and child, gang up to act, everyone putting on a sorrowful, pitiful face that makes Min Hui not know whether to laugh or cry. Helpless, Min Hui concedes and agrees that she and her son will stay here to take care of him for the next few days. Hearing her agree, these people suddenly become happy and excited. Cindy winks smugly at her younger brother and grabs Hardy's arm to leave, cleverly leaving private space for their family of three. When Min Hui personally cooks and brings over a lunchbox of love, hungry XinQi happily digs right in, but then he remembers he has to act, so he frowns and puts on a face complaining the food tastes bad. Just as expected, a worried Min Hui falls into the trap. She intends to take the spoon back to taste it, but he slyly takes advantage, grabbing her hand and stealing a kiss on it. Min Hui blushes so hard from embarrassment that she turns around and runs away. Late into the night, XinQi is still hard at work, dealing with business matters. Min Hui steps out and looks a bit displeased, because after all, he is currently a patient. The attending doctor also instructed him to rest and take take good care of himself. XinQi doesn't seem to care much about this. XinQi confesses that even though she is sleeping right out in the living room, he stays awake missing her even more. He gently pats the bed, calling her to come closer and sit next to him. He tells Min Hui that Bayan's major shareholder is intending to sell off their shares. This is confidential intelligence that Cindy and he took the trouble to find out through various internal channels. Besides, there are also rumors buzzing around the investment sector. Hearing this, Min Hui panics, realizing her heart modeling project might be affected and suspended. So he reassures her, saying he has decided to step in and investigate this matter deeply. XinQi quickly hugs and comforts her. Whatever storms come, he will stand up and handle them all. But Min Hui is still hesitant. She wants to take their son home and come back to continue caring for him tomorrow morning. Unexpectedly, XinQi starts his act again, clutching his chest and saying, "That's just how heart disease is. He could have a stroke and pass away at any moment. It's fine if Min Hui goes home, just in case something happens so she won't get scared." Ku Quan, hiding by the door, also takes the opportunity to add more drama for his dad. Ku Quan calls out, telling his mom to just go home and let these two heart disease patients rely on each other to survive. Even though she knows full well this father and son are deliberately being sly and pretending to be pitiful, Min Hui still softens and can't bear to expose them. So she obediently grabs a folding chair, planning to sleep right next to XinQi to keep watch. She explains that this way, if XinQi needs to call for anything during the night, it'll be more convenient for her to respond. XinQi excitedly asks if that means any requests she'll indulge. Hearing the dark undertone behind his words, Min Hui gets so angry and flushed that she grabs a pillow and smacks him hard in the face. The result is he accidentally succeeds in tricking her into staying. Min Hui learns that the company's major shareholder wants to pull their capital and sell their shares. As the R&D director, she is incredibly worried that the ongoing development projects will be affected and stalled. So she and Cao Mu hurriedly go meet General Manager He Haitan to probe for information. He Haitan coldly confirms this is true and orders Min Hui to do her job well, working hard to quickly push the project's progress. He calculates that this way, when evaluated, the company can be sold at a high price. Min Hui feels very disappointed and worried after hearing this. Later, Cindy calls and invites her to a restaurant for a meal. It turns out the other party is about to fly abroad again. Because she's not at peace regarding her younger brother's condition, she wants to entrust Min Hui to stay and take care of him. Cindy earnestly begs Min Hui not to refuse her, and also not to refuse XinQi. She explains her brother grew up lacking family love since childhood, and Downlet asserts that she and her son are his guiding light of salvation. Faced with such an incredibly sincere from the bottom of Cindy's heart, Min Hui finds it hard to be cruel enough to refuse, so she happily nods in agreement. Now, unexpectedly, the moment she steps back into the house, XinQi has painstakingly prepared an incredibly romantic surprise for her. He offers it as a small gift to thank her for working so hard to take care of him. Looking at the artificial sea of stars drifting slowly across the ceiling, Min Hui quite likes it, but all her worries about the company keep forming a bitter lump in her throat. XinQi sharply notices her worried and troubled demeanor, so he speaks softly to comfort her again. XinQi softly comforts her, telling her to just keep working according to her own pace and let him handle the rest of the storms. He promises to always stand firm, stand guard to protect her, and stay by her side. Perhaps this is the most touching romantic line in the world. Min Hui is genuinely moved to tears. The next day, she goes to the hospital to pick up XinQi's health checkup report. Unexpectedly, in the hallway, she bumps into Chen Qiram. He smugly tells Min Hui that his conglomerate intends to acquire Bayan. He has also been secretly meeting with the major shareholders under the table. If she is curious to know how far their deal negotiations have gone, she can follow him. Although Min Hui absolutely despises this scumbag, she still puts her dedication to her MIT project first. With no other choice, Min Hui grits her teeth and gets into Chen Qiran's car. XinQi arrives just in time to see that scene, and because he is so worried and uneasy, he drives after them. A moment later, Chen Qiran drives Min Hui to a deserted area by a river. It turns out that 5 years ago, Min Hui briefly worked under Chen Qiran. Later, she had to bitterly submit her resignation because Chen Qiran made highly inappropriate sexual advances toward her. Now, Chen Qiran intends to dig this up and use it to force her to submit to him. He even bestially starts to commit indecent acts. Chen Qiran growls, asking what is wrong with him and why XinQi gets indulged by her while he does not. He forces the question of what he has to do to get her. After Min Hui panics and struggles to break free from his grip, she directly slaps him hard. Then, she uses all her strength to elbow this scumbag, sending him collapsing and groaning on the ground. around. Once it is over, she huddles up, recalling that nightmare scenario from years ago, and feels her whole body trembling. At this moment, XinQi finally slams on the gas and arrives, telling her not to be afraid because he is here to protect her, and advises that if she feels wronged and wants to cry, she should just bury her face and cry to feel better. But Min Hui's mental state is not much better. She still feels incredibly haunted and terrified. Fortunately, XinQi remains a solid presence by her side. Because of her pretty and attractive appearance, when she first stepped into the workplace, she received preferential treatment from her boss. He trusted her and put her in charge of the company's most important projects. She naively thought her boss genuinely cared about her abilities, only to bitterly realize in the end that he had dirty ulterior motives. Her old boss forcefully used the excuse that his mood was extremely unstable and demanded she give him face by having a drink with him. Min Hui could not refuse, so she closed her eyes and reluctantly took a sip, but she did not know how to drink hard liquor and suddenly choked and coughed. At this moment, Cheng Qirong suddenly leaned in, pretending to care. Min Hui tried to find an excuse to retreat, reporting that it seemed she had not finished writing her code yet, so she asked for permission to leave. Min Hui wanted to make an excuse to leave, but he had absolutely no intention of letting her go. Faced with the deceitful sleaziness of her superior, Min Hui tried with all her might to resist and break free. Then she swung her arm and slapped him, leaving him stunned. As she panicked and burst out the door, she unexpectedly ran into her close colleague Lin Xiwei at the door. Afterward, she submitted a report of the incident to the HR manager. Lin Xiwei initially promised to step up and testify for her, but at the final moment of confrontation, she cowardly flipped her stance. Lin Xiwei betrayed her by advising that all they could do now was obediently bow their heads to reality, especially with a powerful figure like Cheng Qirong. Because of Lin Xiwei's treacherous testimony, Min Hui was painted by public opinion as a wicked, promiscuous woman who would do absolutely anything to get promoted and advance her career. After XinQi learns the full story, the flames of hatred burn fiercely within him, but he still feels a lingering doubt, wondering why, at the banquet not too long ago, she deliberately flirted with and seduced Cheng Qirong. Min Hui wipes her tears and says it was because his father-in-law is the top expert doctor in the field of heart surgery. Ku Quan's health condition had taken a very critical turn at that time. That is why she disregarded everything and humiliated herself like that. So, Cheng Qirong would be moved to ask his father to step in and help with the surgery. XinQi feels incredibly guilty because when she and her son needed him the most, he was nowhere to be found. Conversely, when they met, he spouted very insulting and tormenting words at Min Hui. Even though regretting the past cannot make up for it, he now swears he wants Cheng Qirong to pay a heavy price. Min Hui quickly pulls him back to stop him, saying a piece of trash like Cheng Qirong is not worth them wasting their time getting involved with. She does not want him getting tangled up in this because of her again, but XinQi still storms off to the hospital to find Cheng Qirong. After waking up in his hospital bed, he arrogantly threatens to sue Min Hui for intentionally harming and assaulting someone, but it seems he lost his mind and forgot that he was the beast who struck first. What Min Hui did was entirely justifiable self-defense. XinQi also firmly states he will splash the cash to hire the best legal team for Min Hui, and the sexual harassment case against her from 5 years ago also needs to be reopened for investigation. As soon as solid evidence is found, Cheng Qirong will be prosecuted by the police. Even if the lawyers cannot find evidence, the news and public opinion will be exposed online by him. Will the major shareholders of Guanchao Group just sit back and let him off the hook when that time comes? Cheng Qirong angrily asks if he dares to threaten him. XinQi sarcastically replies that he has no right to threaten and asserts that his current injuries are absolutely nothing compared to the mental trauma Min Hui had to endure 5 years ago. While the two men are talking and intimidating each other in the hospital room, Hardy, standing guard outside the door, calls Min Hui over. Then she overhears the steely conversation between XinQi and Cheng Qirong, which moves Min Hui to tears. XinQi boldly declares that the two of them once loved each other passionately and also once hated each other. Therefore, he swears that in the days to come, as long as he is alive, absolutely no one is allowed to hurt her, even if that person is himself. The secretary congratulates his boss for surviving so many tribulations and finally achieving a good outcome. XinQi acknowledges that saying is very true and believes they should not stay immersed in painful memories forever. Finally, XinQi's shameless process of winning back his beautiful wife has been a resounding success. The two lovers went full circle and are reunited. That night will be a night that bears witness to their deep, passionate love. From the backyard, extending through the hallway and up to the bed, the scattered traces of their love are left everywhere. When When waking up early in the morning, XinQi still holds on, unwilling to let go. But when Min Hui shyly looks up, her eyes suddenly widen in panic. It turns out the little burden Kuquan is standing at the foot of the bed with his arms crossed. You parents have gone too far this time. Kuquan feels very dissatisfied. His parents secretly slept together, but did not invite him. Is it that now he was born just to be the spare wheel? Kuquan squeezes in and lies in the middle, wanting to monopolize and win back his dad's love. It's a real pity that Min Hui suddenly gets jealous and forcefully pulls her son's hand away. XinQi is incredibly thoughtful, personally preparing breakfast for the whole family. He also suggests that Min Hui and their son pack up and move here to live. But no matter how much he talks until his tongue falls out, Min Hui remains stubborn and refuses to listen, so he has to swallow his pride, pack up, and move in to crash at her place. However, due to concerns about judgmental eyes at work, Min Hui still does not want to make their relationship public during this sensitive time. This makes XinQi feel very frustrated and dissatisfied, so Min Hui quickly sweet-talks, comforts, and humors him. Min Hui sweet-talks him, promising that from now on, outside, she will obediently listen to him, and at home, whatever he says, she will follow. Hearing this pleasingly, XinQi's eyes light up, and he immediately demands even higher requirements. The two throw themselves into kissing passionately again, getting romantic and heading for the bed, but they suddenly stop, realizing their roar. Sleeping son has ruined the mood. XinQi now has his wife, so he doesn't bother trying to flatter his son anymore. He immediately scoops Kuquan up and throws him back into his room. After that, the two of them continue their lovemaking, and on the other side, because Bayan's major shareholder is preparing to pull out capital and sell their shares, Cao Mu is a bit restless and worried. She dedicated herself to joining Bayan right after graduating from university, working incredibly hard to achieve her current position as vice director. Later, if the ownership changes hands, will she still be valued and kept at Bayan to work? Cao Mu insecurely assumes that all the success she has now is thanks to the company's promotion. Su Ziquan immediately refutes that thought as completely wrong. He analyzes that it is not her relying on the company to get where she is, but rather the company relying on her talent to develop this much. Following Su Ziquan's encouraging explanation, Cao Mu suddenly has a completely fresh idea flash in her mind. The next day, she urgently calls He Haitang and Min Hui for a meeting and says the three of them will pool their capital together to buy out Bayan. As long as the three of them unite, then go find a few venture capital investors and private equity funds to bid and raise capital under the guise of an internal management group, then their winning odds will be significantly higher than Guanchao Group's. Min Hui strongly supports Cao Mu's bold proposal. He Haitang nods, saying that if Cao Mu and Min Hui can go out and find interested investors willing to inject capital within 2 weeks, then he will join in and contribute capital too. After returning home from work, Min Hui excitedly informs XinQi about this plan. The two sit down and calculate Bayan's current market valuation, falling somewhere between 1 billion and 3 billion. Therefore, if they want the acquisition deal to succeed, their faction needs to have 1 billion in hand. Bluebird Group's mobilization can only put out a maximum of 500 million. The remaining funding shortfall needs to be resolved by Cao Mu and Min Hui running around themselves. Furthermore, XinQi firmly lays down another condition. No matter how many investors the two of them manage to raise capital from, the total invested amount cannot exceed Bluebird Group's capital, because XinQi's ambition is to seize full, absolute voting control. And everyone in the faction doesn't raise any objections. The investor evaluating the contracts and paperwork thinks there probably won't be any issues, but he still wants to carefully calculate the profit margins for a massive project worth 500 million. Cao Mu confidently assures CEO XinQi to rest absolutely easy, because he will definitely reap the profit margins he desires. Yao Zizhou still wholeheartedly likes Zhou Ruji. After taking the trouble to pursue him so many times and seeing him remain completely unswayed, she decides to change tactics and help him flirt and pursue Min Hui. In this really romantic setup, Yao Zizhou dedicatedly teaches Zhou Ruji how to practice confessing his love. Yao Zizhou instructs Zhou Ruji to say the line expressing his feelings and ask if she would agree to be his girlfriend. The most important condition is at the final step. He must remember to look deeply and affectionately into each other's eyes, then slowly say the final sentence. But this silly girl has no idea that, throughout all those repeated physical touches and interactions, Zhou Ruji has gradually fallen in love with her at some point. Right after a sad Yao Zizhou leaves, Min Hui walks over, facing the girl he used to harbor feelings for. Zhou Ruji now clearly understands what his heart truly wants, so he relievedly bids farewell to his past illusions. He smiles and wishes Min Hui a very happy life from now on, and he also takes large strides, running off to pursue his own haven of happiness. But ironically, Yao Zijou and he just walk right past each other. It isn't until dark that Zhou Ruji, waiting around, sees Yao Zijou slowly strolling back to their apartment complex. But because his masculine nature is a bit foolish, he stammers forever and doesn't know what to say to open the conversation. Zhou Ruji stammers as he expresses his feelings to Yao Zijou, confessing that actually, at first he liked Min Hui, but now he no longer has any feelings for her. Yao Zijou constantly interrupts, questioning if it's because she rejected or didn't like him that he changed direction. Zhou Ruji frantically denies it and tries to explain that later on, he realized the person he truly likes is her, not Min Hui. Yao Zijou hears bits and pieces and directs her own narrative, understanding it as Zhou Ruji failing to confess successfully to someone else. So he turned back to her to fill the void. Feeling hurt as if she were just a spare tire, she angrily cries, leaves behind the sentence "I hate you," turns on her heel, and walks away. Meanwhile, Zhou Ruji scratches his head, almost going crazy at his own stupidity. To quickly clear up the misunderstanding, as soon as he gets off work, he rushes over to find Yao Zijou to talk. He wants to speak up and explain, but Yao Zijou is angry and doesn't give him a single chance. Yao Zijou decisively reiterates her 3 life principles when loving someone. 1. Absolutely never be the third person stepping in. 2. Never be a clingy, desperate lover. And 3. Refuse to be a spare tire. Finally, she warns him never to come looking for her again in the future. But Zhou Ruji does not feel discouraged or give up. Every single day, he takes the trouble to prepare a fresh bouquet of flowers and brings it over. Even if it gets thrown back by security, he remains patient and doesn't give up. One day, Yao Zijou schedules to meet up with a group of friends at a bar, but when the time comes, she gets stood up by all of them. A man from the group at the next table sees this, so he sleazily scurries over, sidles up to her, and seductively invites her to drink. The result is that Zhou Ruji appears right on time, promptly stopping the guy's enthusiastic flirting, and he uses this opportunity to gather his courage and express his thoughts. Zhou Ruji sincerely uses the alcohol to confess that she has never, ever been his second backup choice, and even less so a spare tire. He reveals that he doesn't know when it started, but the person he wants to see the most every single day is her, and after leaving the operating room exhausted, the first person he wants to run to and hug is also her. Zhou Ruji chugs glass after glass of alcohol, using the liquid courage to boost his bravery. He begins to pour out and vent the emotions hidden in his heart non-stop. Yao Zijou gets teary-eyed and moved by this sincere act, but right after, Zhou Ruji gets completely wasted and passes out drunk on Yao Zijou's shoulder. So the tiny girl has to support and carry him back home. At the same time, she whispers an almost impossible challenge condition. Yao Zijou issues a bet, demanding that if he wakes up tomorrow morning and still clearly remembers what he said today, he must personally bring a single rose to meet her. She adds that if he blames being drunk and remembers nothing, it means they truly have no destiny together. At this point, Zhou Ruji is already sleeping like the dead. But surprisingly, the next day, while Yao Zijou is sadly exercising alone, Zhou Ruji appears sharply dressed out of nowhere, holding a rose. Faced with this romantic confession, Yao Zijou sheds tears of happiness and emotion. She nods in agreement with him, and just like that, another pair of lovebirds in the movie gets a beautiful ending. Min Hui is a hardworking single mother, but thanks to her extremely outstanding professional abilities, after years of grinding away at work, she managed to save up and buy a beautiful house. But now, to pool money to push for the management buyout of the company, she decides to list the house for sale to get cash. As her boyfriend, XinQi feels a bit shocked when he learns of this decision. XinQi worriedly questions her. If she sells the house now, where will she and their son live? Just as he finishes speaking, XinQi's expression suddenly changes, and an idea pops into his head. He immediately volunteers to help her find a middleman real estate agent. One urgent phone call goes out, and an actor-turned-agent quickly appears. Throughout this time, XinQi acts very enthusiastic and proactive. He even instructs the fake homebuyer that they can come inspect the house anytime. It turns out he set up this trick solely with the motive of forcing Min Hui and her son to pack up and move into his mansion together. XinQi coaxes her, saying he knows she always wants her own quiet space, but guarantees his mansion is more than spacious enough to assign her a separate private area, and even has space for her to let her imagination run wild. After XinQi repeatedly pleads and tempts her, Min Hui softens and agrees, starting to pack up her belongings. But after all, it's a place she's been attached to for years, so before leaving, Min Hui feels a bit nostalgic and reluctant to part with it, because every corner of this house was meticulously cared for by her own hands. XinQi stands watching and understands her feelings. XinQi coaxes her, telling her to be good and stop crying, and suggests maybe they should cancel the contract and not sell anymore. Min Hui sniffles, whining that she doesn't want to move anywhere. But immediately after, reason takes over and she asserts that since they decided to sell, they still have to sell. They can't back out just because of regret. Min Hui laughs at herself, finding it really funny. She didn't expect that with just one coaxing sentence, he'd rush to show his true colors. Right at this moment, neighbor Zhou Ruji knocks on the door to visit. When he hears the news that Min Hui is rushing to sell her house, he enthusiastically helps introduce another buyer. The two parties quickly finalize and agree on the price. She decides to sell it for 3 million. And so, Min Hui nostalgically bids farewell to the past. XinQi has also achieved his long-held scheming desire. The two joyfully begin moving toward a new life. However, the budget still has a shortfall of 8 million before they gather enough money for the acquisition. Cao Mu luckily runs around and manages to find a new investor. Unexpectedly, this director turns out to be Min Hui's former blind date. This encounter makes her feel a bit hesitant and embarrassed. Fortunately, the director doesn't mind or care about that at all. He even endlessly praises Min Hui's professional capabilities and skills. The investor highly evaluates her, revealing that in his business investment rulebook, there is always one prerequisite: looking at the value of core talent. He asserts that because the project has director Min Hui here commanding it, the company is completely worthy of being injected with investment capital. At the same time, Ding Yifeng walks by and accidentally eavesdrops, discovering the acquisition plan of Min Hui and the others in her faction. But the bitter part is that he himself has been sidelined and doesn't know a single bit of information. This makes him feel very angry and insulted. Therefore, he despicably decides to run off and collaborate with Cheng Qirong. Cheng Qirong promises that as long as he finds a way to steal the lowest bidding price set by Cao Mu's group, the position of vice general manager of Bayan after this takeover will definitely be his reward. After receiving Lin Xue's lucrative promise, Ding Yifeng begins to act sneakily. He approaches and seeks out Mimi. He threatens, coerces, and forces her to secretly plant a listening device right next to Min Hui's desk. Meanwhile, Min Hui and the others in her faction remain completely unaware of Ding Yifeng's shady actions. Min Hui happily accepted the investor's request for help, going out to a bookstore to buy some related professional reference books. As the person holding the title of her boyfriend, XinQi, gets extremely worried when he finds out, so he secretly and stealthily tails the two of them. Unexpectedly, Min Hui sharp-eyedly spots his sneaky movements. To completely dispel his jealous suspicions, Min Hui boldly and publicly introduces him as her official boyfriend right in front of the investor. XinQi is incredibly proud and honored today. Min Hui boldly introduces XinQi as her boyfriend, then turns to scold boss Xin for tailing people like this, saying it doesn't look very good and asking if he doesn't feel embarrassed doing that. Xin casually replies he'd rather choose to lose face than lose his wife. The two keep clinging to each other, flirting and teasing each other the whole way back. Late that night, when they get home, the two see assistant Mimi appear. She guiltily and sincerely informs Min Hui about Ding Yifeng's entire eavesdropping plan. Hearing this, XinQi suddenly realizes the problem. No wonder Guanchao Group has been so quiet lately without a single move. He immediately has a light bulb moment and decides to use their own trick against them. Min Hui also nods in agreement to leak a fake bidding price. Therefore, thanks to the consultation and help of boss XinQi, Min Hui easily acts out a scene to gain the enemy faction's trust. Cao Mu holds up her computer and speaks intentionally for the bug to hear. This time, our faction is truly the luckiest to have such a generous major shareholder like you backing us up. Now, listening to your analysis, I firmly believe we'll win. XinQi, hearing his wife's deep acting, instantly feels his body get turned on. The two dive back into preparing for a workout on the bed, but right at this climax, XinQi's smart warning watch beeps loudly. However, XinQi is so eager he doesn't care much. He justifies it by saying every time he's near Min Hui, his heart rate spikes like this. The next day, XinQi takes off the watch and asks Hardy to take it to the manufacturer for a checkup, blaming it for measuring inaccurately. Hardy wonders if maybe his heart actually isn't doing well. XinQi grumpily argues back, defending that he's very healthy. At the same time, at the company, Min Hui and her two teammates join forces, starting to execute their counter scheme together. First, Mimi uses her phone to send a text reporting to Ding Yifeng, saying she has finished planting the tracking device. Then Min Hui and Cao Mu stand at the desk, purposely speaking loudly to criticize and humiliate Ding Yifeng. The two purposely raise their voices, criticizing that they've never seen such filthy trash in their lives, comparing his appearance to a smelly sewer rat who is always narcissistic and delusionally thinks he's handsome. They agreeably scold that a low-class person like him absolutely doesn't deserve to be called human. He's just an immoral, shameless scumbag of a man, lacking both talent and even a shred of basic human decency. After venting their anger for a bit, the two lower their voices and shift to discussing the intended stock bidding price. Cao Mu looks at the bug and pretends to finalize the number at 129 billion. Ding Yifeng, eavesdropping on the other end of the line, is incredibly surprised. He mistakenly and smugly thinks his scheme has been a complete success. He secretly curses, waiting to see how long this group of people can stay arrogant and smug. He gleefully runs off to report the important intelligence he heard to Cheng Qiran. But on the announcement day, an unexpected event suddenly occurs. The final winning representative turns out to be Guan Chao Group. This leaves Min Hui's entire faction deeply shocked and bewildered. Min Hui's faction panics when they learn the rival bid exactly 2 million higher than their actual price. They think this is impossible and sense something shady going on. They analyze that the price being exactly 2 million higher shows he couldn't possibly have naturally calculated such an accurate price, and conclude this coincidence is truly too suspicious. Min Hui was holding a sure win in the company acquisition process, but ended up stumbling and losing by a hair to her competitor. Thinking about all the effort and brainpower she invested before, now all washed down the drain and wasted like this, she feels incredibly desperate and extremely disappointed. She has absolutely no idea where the flaw in the problem lies, and she even less wants to spend her future days continuing to bow her head and work under her enemy, so she locks herself away alone to think and calculate her future resignation plan. XinQi feels sorry for his wife, so he comes to persuade her. He wants her to pack up and join his Bluebird group, but being an incredibly strong woman with an independent career orientation, Min Hui refuses his pity. XinQi doesn't bother forcing her. Instead, he and his son Kuquan wholeheartedly express their moral support for Min Hui. XinQi encourages his wife to keep going, promising this husband will always stand behind and support his wife. Kuquan also chimes in to cheer his mom on, promising her son will also always support her. A smiling, happy family of three holds hands and walks outside. XinQi dedicatedly drives Min Hui to the company door to submit her resignation letter. Then he turns the car around back to Bluebird Group to double-check the investments. He starts ordering the investigation department to look into Lin Xiwei. In the case from back then, she was the one who backstabbed and betrayed Min Hui to gain favors and get acquainted with Cheng Qiran. Throughout the years, she has also secretly assisted Cheng Qiran as his lackey, carrying out many shady deeds. Therefore, the best way to get a grip on and deal with Cheng Qiran is to start digging into Lin Xiwei. On the other side, all the company employees, after hearing the news that Guan Chao Group won the bid and is about to take over Bayan, and is preparing for rounds of staff layoffs and adjustments, start panicking and worrying. Min Hui, as someone about to leave, can't do anything. She can only comfort and advise them to try to focus on doing their jobs well. She says that if everyone works efficiently, the new management won't have an excuse to easily fire staff. Afterward, she calls to inform Cao Mu about her definitive intention to resign, and sincerely asks her to keep an eye on and help her R&D team number 2. Although Cao Mu is incredibly sad and doesn't want to part with her companion Min Hui, she respects and agrees to it. Cao Mu promises that as long as she sits in this company, she will use her own body to shield and protect them. The most worrisome, lingering issues have all been arranged and settled smoothly. Min Hui then feels relieved and at ease, taking her resignation letter and placing it on Cheng Qiran's desk. Unexpectedly, the other party flips his attitude. Not only does he refuse to sign the approval, but he also tries to rope her in, promising to put her in the general manager position. Unfortunately, Min Hui has long seen through and realized his true nature, so she flatly refuses. As a result, Cheng Qiran turns hostile, using the fate of her MIT project as a threat. Seeing he can't successfully subdue her, he shifts to threatening the livelihoods of Min Hui's subordinates. Cheng Qiran threatens that, if she stubbornly insists on leaving, he will use his power to try his hardest to torment and torture them. He lists that first, he will sign the firing order for Tai Wenji, the person with the most difficult living situation and in the most need of money. He also targets Wang Qingyuan, sarcastically asking if his wife is currently at home pregnant, then threatens to pile a massive workload onto him during this sensitive time to drive him crazy. Hearing this, Min Hui trembles with anger and clenches her fists tightly. She hates him so much, she just wants to immediately rush over and beat him to a pulp. But for the peace and benefit of all her subordinate employees, she has no choice but to swallow the lump of anger and personally withdraw her resignation letter. To try and cover up to prevent his filthy, dirty past deeds from being exposed, Cheng Qiran takes out a check, hands Lin Xiwei an amount of money, and coldly tells her to take it, pack up, and get the hell out of here. For a piece of trash like him, the promises bruises and the little bit of romantic affection from the past were all just a physical transaction and exchange. Holding the check, Lin Hui finally wakes up. It turns out that for all these years, she was just a cheap tool for others to use and trample on. Over the past few years, she has had to close her eyes and do too many dirty, shady things for him. Furthermore, she also holds an audio recording as evidence in her hands. It clearly shows he is the one who sexually harassed Min Hui 5 years ago. So Lin Hui uses it to turn around and blackmail him. Either let this blow up and he'll be ruined and disgraced, or he has to let her become the CEO of Bayan. Cheng Qirong is inherently arrogant, so he firmly refuses to accept the threat. After Lin Hui leaves, holding a grudge, he immediately picks up the phone to call and instruct someone. And on the other side, Min Hui, feeling bitter about losing the acquisition war, submitted her resignation. But because of Cheng Qirong's vicious threat, she was forced to helplessly withdraw the letter. Standing upstairs looking down at her colleagues below, Min Hui nostalgically recalls the days they fought side by side. They once worked overtime exhaustingly with her without a single word of regret. They also never complained, whined, or cried about being tired. So how could she selfishly and heartlessly abandon them to their fate now? Mimi runs over guiltily, crying and explaining. She swears she truly had no intention of colluding with Ding Yifeng, nor did she ever intend to betray or sell out Min Hui. Min Hui wipes her tears, knowing this innocence very well. She knows the reason why her acquisition bid failed. It's because the information leak problem lies in another loophole elsewhere. Min Hui suppresses her sorrow and still smiles to comfort Mimi. But in reality, the person carrying the wounds and needing comfort the most right now is her. Luckily, while she was falling apart, XinQi was solidly by her side. He always knows how to create surprises for her. Min Hui refuses, thinking that now it has been transferred and belongs to someone else. XinQi smiles and replies that this will always and forever be her home. Min Hui looks at him with an expression full of confusion and doubt. It isn't until XinQi smiles and tells her the truth that she becomes incredibly moved. It turns out XinQi had long known that Min Hui had to grit her teeth and was about to sell the house. He worried that she would be sad and regret it in the future, because after all the upheavals, this house is the only place holding too many sacred memories of her and her son. So he secretly teamed up and asked Zhou Ruji for a favor. He asked him to find and hire a stranger to act out the scene of a homebuyer, but all the money and contracts were signed under his name. Then he planned that when the storms passed and the time was right, he would quietly process the paperwork to transfer the property deed directly to Quan. Hearing this, Min Hui is so moved, she bursts into tears. She even feels self-blame, thinking her past dismissive attitude towards XinQi was too cold and arrogant, so she hugs him tightly, enjoying and feeling each other's warmth and protection. After that, she takes XinQi out for a walk to relieve stress. The two go to the cinema to buy movie tickets. Lin Hui just uses her key to open the door and walk in when she sees her house's belongings ransacked and a total mess. Her intuition tells her something bad is wrong. She immediately realizes professional thieves have broken in, so she panics and quickly tears through the dresser drawers to check. Sure enough, the important evidentiary files and documents have all been stolen. Lin Hui knows for sure this burglary was orchestrated by Cheng Qirong. Right at this moment, two mysterious, strange men dressed in black appear. Thinking they came to silence her, she panics, grabs a glass bottle, and desperately swings hard at the two men. It turns out these two kind-hearted people are actually XinQi and his secretary, Hardy. With XinQi's protection and help, Lin Hui is safely moved and transported to another location. XinQi reassures her this is a safe house his secretary secretly rented, so Cheng Qirong's people will definitely not be able to find it. Although Lin Hui has officially fallen out and turned against Cheng Qirong, deep down she still foolishly thinks the other party will eventually regret it and change his mind, so she firmly refuses to cooperate and help XinQi. But XinQi is patient and doesn't get discouraged at all. He firmly believes that sooner or later, Lin Hui will open her eyes and give up, because the true nature of that guy, Cheng Qirong, will never ever change. Hardy worriedly asks if she will be willing to help their side. XinQi instructs him absolutely never to underestimate the hatred and thirst for revenge of a woman. Sure enough, right now Lin Hui is sitting blankly on the bed. Her teary eyes clearly show her grievance and hatred. And on the other side, Cheng Qirong is sitting jiggling his leg, reviewing the pile of evidence he just acquired. He opens it and discovers it's just a stack of romantic chat history between him and Lin Hui, along with a few secretly taken intimate photos of the two of them. Apart from those blackmail materials, there is nothing else to be seen. Therefore, he suspiciously and smugly assumes Lin Hui is just deliberately trying to trick and scare him. He breathes a sigh of relief, feeling much more at ease. While driving to meet a business client, Cheng Cheng happens to spot Min Hui walking dejectedly on the sidewalk. Relying on his power and acting boldly, he pulls his car over, wanting to bother Min Hui. He uses his boss authority, demanding and forcing Min Hui to go meet and drink with clients with him, but she remains stubborn and bluntly refuses. Cheng refuses to give up. He still shamelessly continues to trail and cling to Min Hui. Fortunately, right at that moment, XinQi appears. Just in time, he rushes over, points straight at his face, and warns the other party to stay away from Min Hui. Unexpectedly, the guy maintains his thick-skinned attitude, bringing up and talking about XinQi's past weakness. Cheng sarcastically remarks that XinQi seems to be a hero who always arrives right on time, but he provokes him, saying he doesn't know if, in the future, his health will still allow him to arrive in time like that. Having finished his threats, Cheng turns around, gets into his car, and arrogantly steps on the gas to leave. This provocation makes XinQi feel extremely angry. It further solidifies his determination to drag that bastard into the light of the law. After that, he coaxes her and says that all the troubles and matters will be handled single-handedly by him. The result is that in a moment of carelessness, Min Hui spots a large bruise on his elbow. To keep her from overthinking and blaming herself, XinQi hurriedly hides it and lies about the cause. XinQi teasingly asks if she's thinking he got beaten up for having an affair. Min Hui glares at him, warning that if he has the guts to have an affair, she will personally break one of his legs. XinQi pouts, asking how he can steadily protect her in the future if he loses a leg. Min Hui stubbornly fires back that she absolutely doesn't need him to protect her. XinQi concludes with a domineering line that whether she needs him to step up and protect her or not is her right, but sacrificing to protect her is his duty. This domineering confession makes Min Hui feel incredibly moved. Mimi is crying because she is being cornered and harassed by Ding Yifeng. Min Hui is enjoying a sweet moment with XinQi when she suddenly receives a notification message. She panics, quickly catches a taxi, and returns to the company. After that, she rescues and takes Mimi back to a safe apartment. Min Hui surprisingly presses the victim, asking if she really has no intention of going to report it to the police. Due to many humiliating reasons, Mimi stammers that she has no such plans. Hearing this, Min Hui feels very disappointed. Back then, when she just started working, she also had a similar terrible experience. Even though the other party's tricks meant he wasn't punished by the law after she reported it to the police, she is proud because she never regrets it. Because silence and endurance will only serve as kindling to encourage evildoers to run rampant. That will indirectly lead to harming even more victims. Seeing Mimi still holding her face in worry, Min Hui still tries to advise and persuade her, but is stopped by XinQi, who pulls her hand away. XinQi explains he thinks the process of Mimi recovering her life needs to be done by her step by step. Outsiders like us can support and guide, but we absolutely shouldn't overstep our bounds and force too much intervention. Min Hui reflects on it and agrees with his respectful viewpoint, but in her heart, she still feels incredibly resentful. Why do women always encounter so many filthy barriers and difficulties in the workplace? After coming face to face with Ding Yifeng at the company the next morning, Min Hui doesn't hold back, standing right in his face and cursing him out terribly. Other suppressed colleagues also join in the fun, unleashing a collective barrage of insults. This makes him so ashamed that his anger turns into rage, and he pulls out his phone, threatening to call the police. But from behind, a voice suddenly rings out. An officer asks who wants to call the police. It turns out Mimi bravely brought the police right to the spot. After tossing and turning, thinking all night, Mimi finally gathers all her courage and bravery. She brushes off and no longer fears the gossip and judgmental eyes of outsiders. Because Mimi submitted recorded audio evidence, Ding Yifeng is immediately grabbed and arrested. And because Min Hui engaged in physical assault by punching someone, she is also taken away by the police to give a statement. But because it was self-defense, she is only given a mild warning report and immediately released. XinQi receives the bad news and panics, rushing hurriedly to the station. Only when he sees Min Hui is safe and unharmed does he clutch his chest and breathe a sigh of relief. The employees in the company go online, see the news about Ding Yifeng getting arrested, and secretly throw a celebration party. Furthermore, no one drops a single word of disdain or gossip about Mimi. On the contrary, everyone deeply admires and praises her courage to speak out. Right after, Vice General Manager Cao Mu stands in the middle of the company and makes an announcement. From now on, everyone is free to dress in whatever style they want to come to work. Min Hui also stands up and adds to it. Everyone here has the right to speak up against unfair discrimination and harassment. The two female bosses immediately receive rounds of applause, admiration, and cheering encouragement from their colleagues. But right during this celebration, celebration, Cao Mu and Min Hui surf the web and discover a hot search trending online. The content of the exposé post details how Cheng Chirong sexually harassed Min Hui 5 years ago. And on the company's side, Cheng Chirong has also read this accusatory post. He slams the table, cursing out the PR crisis management department as a bunch of incompetent fools. And he loudly demands the department head issue a press release for them, put out the fire within 1 hour. This matter must be completely extinguished and resolved. After that, he aggressively calls to threaten Min Hui. Cheng Chirong growls, asking if she smugly thinks that using Ding Yifeng's tiny scandal as an excuse to dig up the slander from 5 years ago means she can single-handedly dethrone and overthrow him. He madly assumes that anonymous post was provided and narrated by Min Hui herself, so he growls and promises to file a countersuit against her for defamation. Then he changes his tone, telling a cold-blooded story. His wife has an adopted pet dog at home. Cheng Chirong hates hair, so he doesn't like it, but his wife kept whining and forcing him to take it for a walk, because he knew there was a very large, vicious pit bull chained up in the distance. He let off the leash, and just a moment later, hearing the barking, his wife's dog had been bitten to death. Min Hui wonders why he would have the free time to tell her this nonsense story. Cheng Chirong threatens he wants to tell her about the miserable end that the dog he hates will have to suffer. The next day, Min Hui is carrying groceries and walking on the street. Suddenly, a person riding a speeding motorbike crashes into her. The impact makes her collapse, her ankles swelling up and bruising purple. XinQi at home tears at himself, blaming himself profusely. He agonizes, thinking that if he had gone to pick her up earlier, she wouldn't have gotten into an accident. He immediately goes crazy, telling Hardy to mobilize people to investigate the incident. Checking the cameras, they discover the license plate of the vehicle causing the accident is fake. It's 100% certain someone pulled the strings and did this intentionally. Min Hui also frowns, guessing this stage setup must definitely be related to Cheng Chirong's revenge. At the same time, she holds his hand and cautions XinQi. She tells him absolutely not to lose his temper and do dangerous, illegal things because of her. Because that guy, Cheng Chirong, does everything with incredibly immoral tactics. He truly is an extremely dangerous person. XinQi bites the bullet and agrees. And a few days later, when Min Hui's injury has been treated and improved, XinQi personally drives her to meet a business partner. It turns out the author of the anonymous online exposé post was actually written by Lin Xie's own hands. She confidently pulls a USB drive out of her bag. She boldly announces she currently holds ironclad evidence in her hands. This is her chance to atone and fix the mistakes of the past. She looks at Min Hui and asks if she wants to put aside their grudge and cooperate to join her in making that bastard Cheng Chirong pay a heavy price. Min Hui sarcastically remarks there's no reason she can refuse. And so the two women take turns going live. They begin to detail the roots of the terrible incident from 5 years ago, exposing the true face that Cheng Chirong threatened and wanted to rape Min Hui. Lin Xie holds up the USB drive, showing it off, and says the files inside contain the original audio recording. It records the bargaining when Cheng Chirong forced and demanded her to commit perjury in court. As the live stream goes on, the explosive incident becomes increasingly widespread and viral, especially with victim Min Hui's powerful appeals, which further stir up and resonate with public sympathy. Moreover, she chokes up, ending the livestream by admitting she doesn't know if her small voice is of any use, but she desperately wants to send a message to the women who have also been in the same painful situation as her, begging them to please be brave. She asserts they are absolutely not alone, because justice and righteousness will always ultimately prevail. As the heat of public opinion rises uncontrollably, the Guanchao Group's PR department is helpless and unable to put out the fire to stop the situation. Cheng Chirong, inside his office, angrily smashes things, criticizing and cursing his subordinates for working stupidly and poorly. But before he finishes venting his anger, immediately after, police cars arrive, carrying an urgent arrest warrant. All the employees who have been oppressed for so long follow and gather around, and they gloatingly point right at his face, cursing him out directly. The scandal erupting causes Guanchao Group's stock price to plummet and drop sharply. XinQi sharp-wittedly takes advantage of this golden opportunity, pouring capital in to acquire it. Because the MIT project is all of Min Hui's youth and dedication, he absolutely doesn't want to let it fall into anyone else's hands. Because of this acquisition battle, he had to exhaust his strength, working and grinding day and night. But due to his history of heart disease, working and staying awake all night has brought many terrible consequences and negative impacts on his physical health. After several grueling days, XinQi concludes he has gathered and holds 26% of Guanchao Group's shares, but that number is still 5% less than than the target to execute and seize control of the shares. To quickly achieve the ultimate goal, he and Min Hui go together to meet Yi Ding, Chen Qiran's wife. The other party is initially arrogant and completely unwilling to cooperate, even though she suffers despite being heartlessly betrayed by her husband, until Min Hui brings up the story and reveals the secret about her pet dog, that it being bitten to death by a pit bull wasn't an accident, but everything was orchestrated and set up by Chen Qiran's own hands. Hearing this, Yi Ding finally becomes mad with rage. She slams the table, agreeing to sign the papers to sell her remaining 5% of shares to XinQi, and just like that, the deal goes through smoothly. XinQi officially overthrows them and becomes the largest major shareholder of Guanchao Group. He also indirectly ousts them, seizing control of Bayan's technology project. That night, everyone in the faction gathers to throw a celebration party. The atmosphere is incredibly relaxed. After the meeting and party break up, XinQi secretly takes out the diamond ring he took the trouble to prepare in advance. He steps up and intends to get down on one knee to propose. He remembers he previously intended to do this exactly 2 times, but ironically, every time it got ruined and failed. So on this happy day, he really wants to do it again. Min Hui panics, calling his name and asking what's wrong with him. XinQi, the guy who just took out the ring and prepared to kneel down to propose to his girlfriend, suddenly clutches his chest, suffers a severe heart attack relapse, and collapses. And he is once again taken by wailing ambulance sirens to the emergency room at the hospital. Lying on the hospital bed, facing his girlfriend's crying and concern, XinQi sadly dodges the issue, not saying another word about the proposal ring. XinQi weakly asks what he was asking her about earlier, hoping that maybe today, seeing her happy, she would give him an answer again. Min Hui wipes her tears, forces a smile, and asks, what if he wants to hear the answer? XinQi sadly avoids it, replying that he also forgot. XinQi's faltering, retreating, and insecure behavior makes Min Hui feel incredibly painful and sad, because this action means his current health condition is absolutely not positive or optimistic. Min Hui secretly runs out to the hallway to ask Dr. Zhou Ruji, and she is devastated to learn that this severe relapse of XinQi's illness is likely caused by overworking and exhaustion. His condition requires open-heart surgery as soon as possible. If delayed and not done, it will be extremely dangerous and life-threatening. After Dr. Zhou Ruji sighs and leaves, Min Hui can't hold back and suddenly suffers a mental breakdown and collapses. She slumps down onto the floor, holding her head in both hands, sobbing bitterly. Hardy walks up to the bed and tells XinQi that Sister Cindy has contacted and finalized the schedule with his main surgeon overseas. The flight tickets have also been booked in advance. XinQi looks at the girl collapsing and crying outside the door and can't bear to close his eyes and leave, so he lies, just delaying and pushing it back by one more day. He invites Min Hui to go for a walk with him, to look at the majestic mountains. The two just interlock fingers, sticking tightly together. Without letting go, XinQi strokes her hair, promising he will have a successful surgery and return truly healthy. But in reality, deep down in his heart, there isn't a single shred of hope or belief. Min Hui delicately also knows this terrible reality very well. She has secretly prepared thoroughly. She wants to give XinQi a surprise event, and also consider it as a parting goodbye gift. Min Hui tells him to close his eyes and count to 5 before opening them. After he opens his eyes, he is so moved that his eyes turn red. Whether it was 5 years ago or right now in the present, the only man I want to take as my husband is only you. Min Hui exposes him, saying his secret purchase of tickets abroad isn't for a business trip but to go get surgery. She scolds him for being silly and refusing to tell the truth because he's afraid she'll worry, but points out the truth is that no matter how he hides it, she will still worry anyway. At this moment, behind him, a family member's voice rings out, making his heart race. XinQi turns his head to look back and sees all his friends and everyone are already there. Min Hui is gorgeously wearing a pure white wedding dress, slowly stepping and walking toward him. Min Hui knows full well XinQi is insecure and doesn't want to open his mouth to ask that question because he fears the risks after this surgery. If he is unlucky and doesn't survive to return, it will ruin her youth and life. But Min Hui strongly wants to decide her own life's happiness herself, no matter what terrible things happen in the future. Right at this very moment, the only man she wants to give herself to and live with for the rest of her life can only be XinQi. So she takes the initiative, flipping from guest to host. Min Hui proactively asks XinQi if he is willing to agree to marry her. XinQi bursts into tears, nodding to confirm he agrees. Under the witness and flower tossing of everyone, Min Hui holds the ring and slowly slides it onto XinQi's finger. But when it's his turn to put the ring back on, XinQi hesitates and pulls his hand back, telling Min Hui to stay firmly confident in him. He tells her to wait for the day he is cured and returns healthy and and safe. At that time, he will personally host an official wedding and slide the ring onto her finger himself. Min Hui smiles, saying she wants him to carve this vow into his heart and remember it. She has a fierce belief that the surgery's outcome won't be bad. And so, under everyone's applauding witness, the two hug each other and share a deep kiss. Little Kuquan stands watching, clapping his hands in overwhelming joy. On the night before XinQi packs his bags preparing to go abroad for surgery, the two parents lying on the bed happily argue again about whose face their child resembles more. XinQi proudly says his son's high nose bridge looks a lot like his. Min Hui argues back, saying his big, round eyes were genetically inherited from her. XinQi also strokes his hair, saying Quan being smart and sharp is inheriting his father's intelligence. Min Hui hears this and pouts mockingly. That kind of street smarts at best only counts as being sly and cunning. She points at herself, claiming she is the one officially recognized as smart, because right now she holds the grand title of project director. XinQi looks affectionately at his girlfriend and softly promises he will definitely recover quickly and return healthy. He will personally slide the proposal ring onto her finger, and he will make her the happiest girl in this world. Min Hui smiles happily and sinks deep into a peaceful sleep. But early the next morning when she wakes up, she reaches out to feel the space next to her, only to find it empty. XinQi is nowhere to be seen. Panicked and impatient, she quickly picks up the phone to call and ask where he is. Min Hui's face collapses in utter sadness when she finds out from the other end of the line that he is already at the airport. They clearly lay there making promises to each other last night. Why would he secretly pack his bags and go to the airport alone now? At this moment, Min Hui turns around and sees a document folder left on the table. When she tremblingly opens it to look, she sees it is the asset transfer will XinQi wrote and left behind. She slumps down, suddenly feeling her chest and heart ache tightly, but she knows she still has to stay strong and endure the pain of separation. She tells XinQi, who is going into the operating room, to try his best to return safely soon. During the long, endless days separated from XinQi, Min Hui can only bury her head and force herself into work. That is the only way for her to not have time to think about and miss him anymore. When she has a little free time, she also texts to update with XinQi, constantly asking about the status and progress of the surgery process. Just like that, in a flash, half a long, endless year has passed. Today, Vice General Manager Cao Mu comes and forces Min Hui to get ready to go out and meet an extremely important client. And on the way, she asks about XinQi's current health condition. Min Hui, with a sad voice, says XinQi's illness keeps continuously relapsing, and the doctor says he still needs to rest and recover. She also confesses she's very worried, because up to now, it has been over a full week, and she still hasn't heard a single word or been able to contact and call him. But she looks up and says she still holds a firm belief that he will defeat death and return to reunite with the mother and son. Verbally, Min Hui tries to act very confident about this, but when Cao Mu looks deeply into her facial expression, she clearly sees it looks tinged with sadness. Seeing this, Cao Mu steps on the gas, hurriedly driving her to the client meeting spot. But right when they arrive at the building lobby, Cao Mu suddenly makes an excuse about a stomachache, needing to go to the restroom, then turns on her heel and runs off, disappearing, leaving Min Hui bewildered all alone. Min Hui presses the button to go up the elevator, but unexpectedly, halfway up, the elevator reports a malfunction, forcing her to walk all the way up to the highest rooftop floor before things seem fine again. She steps outside onto the rooftop, casting her eyes around to observe the surroundings with a highly confused expression on her face. Suddenly, a warm, familiar voice rings out from right behind Min Hui. She freezes, thinking it's just an auditory hallucination because she misses him too much. But when she slowly turns around, she sees the boy XinQi, whom she misses day and night, standing there returned in the flesh. Their eyes meet, blurred with tears. And so, the two of them finally overcame all the barriers and challenges of illness, life and death, and even time, to bravely take large strides and run toward each other. The scene transitions swiftly. After fully recovering his health, XinQi decides he doesn't want to waste another single minute or second. He officially hosts a wedding ceremony to marry Min Hui. Their biological son, Ku Quan, has very maturely become the ring bearer and witness. Quan holds the mic and loudly wishes his parents to try hard tonight to quickly give birth to a little sister for him. All the guests and everyone present in the audience burst out laughing in unison, because they don't know who secretly taught the little boy to speak so cleverly. In the blink of an eye, 2 happy years have passed. The couple has given birth to another incredibly cute little boy. XinQi hugs her waist, enticing his wife and inviting her to have another child. His wife gives him a loving glare and stops him, saying that is enough. Today's movie ends here. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and a comment so we can continue making more movie videos. Thank you for your attention and support, and see you again in the next videos.